Hey, everybody, welcome to Movies We're Talking About, where we talk and talk and talk about movies. I'm John Carlos, and today I'm joined by
Uh, Eddie.
that's Wookiee speak for Eddie.
Yeah.
And we are here to talk about Jersey Girl.
Yeah. That's where I'm wearing my Kimberly Akimbo shirt because it's another girl in Jersey going through some shit that's none of her fault.
New Jersey. And I'm wearing my Berserker shirt because in this chronology, the Askewniverse just ended.
Yeah.
And this was Jay's shirt in Strike Back.
Makes
And
sense.
yeah, they closed the book. God herself closed the book. We're
Yeah. Oh, I
done with
didn't
these
stick around for that. Oh my God, I forgot that that happened. When I rewatched it, I watched most of the end credits and then just shut it off. I have to now I
you
have to go because
asshole.
it's Alanis
It's
sleeping
Alanis.
around being adorable.
And you of all people.
I know. It was like I watched this at like 3 in the morning this morning. I just woke up and I was like, oh, I was gonna wait until like right before we shot, but I'm probably gonna need to sleep all this off. So, and I'm not tired right now, so I may as well watch it right now. And I watched the whole thing, took my
Nice.
notes. Yeah,
Good for you. What good boy.
thank you. Don't move on.
You watch a movie, you took your notes like a good boy. Okay, moving on. Um yeah, so we're looking at 2004.
Yeah.
Um and I forgot when I first started this. I forgot that how much the opening sequence is like a period piece where it's like 1994. I'm like 1994. Oh wait, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, the
Yeah.
kid gets born and then we jump in time.
Or conceived.
Yeah,
Like,
well,
yeah.
conceive. Yeah, because I
Yeah.
also I didn't. I think this is a byproduct of the fact that there is an extended cut, a director's cut that's not made available, but there is an early cut that he screens sometimes at his own festivals
Hmm.
where J Lo's in it a lot more. I've read,
Really?
I've read the. It takes almost an hour for Gertie to get born, like
Whoa.
45, 50 minutes. Um, and I can't help. Yeah, that's the right reaction. I've always wanted to see the extended cut because I
I'm
know.
out of curiosity,
Yeah,
100%.
because I heard that J Lo, has a lot more than just like 10 minutes of screen time.
Huh.
Um, and I know he's played it at Vulgarthons. And
Okay.
the joke was when Paramount Plus was going to launch, and Paramount owns Jersey Girl now.
Yeah.
He's like, "Hey, if you want to put an extended cut on the app, I have an extended cut for you." And,
Mhm. And they're just
nothing's
like,
nothing's happened
we're
yet.
Paramount. We don't do anything right. Yeah.
Yeah, your words, not mine.
We canceled Pink Ladies and took it off our platform. I'm still bitter.
Fuck, dude.
I only saw the pilot and I was like, "Oh, I'd be down for this." Next day, off.
That yeah,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. Side tangent because most apps at least would say, "Hey, we're announcing this, and then here's the date it's coming off." If I remember
Mm,
correctly, they announced like on a Wednesday, "Oh, we're pulling it," and then on Friday it was gone. I was like,
right.
"The fuck!" I had 2 episodes left.
Oh my God, that's even worse.
It was worse, and that show was
Oh,
fucking good. I
yeah.
and I was on well, and going into it, I'm like, "No, this
Yeah,
is
me
fuck
too.
you,"
I was like,
and I had a great time.
I turned it on a lark, like I was just gonna be like, okay, well, this will be easy to fall asleep to. Awake through the whole thing, and then I was
Hmm.
like, shit, I have to work tomorrow. I would binge this all night if I could, but
That cast
anyway.
was surprisingly game, and the song, well, not surprisingly, the songs are
Yeah.
surprisingly good, and the cast is very game.
Yes, there you
Yeah.
go.
Anyway, I can't help but wonder because when I watch it now and it says 1994, and then like
Hmm.
within 5 or 10 minutes, they're talking about Will Smith's about to come out with Independence Day. And I'm like, well, that's 96. And Bad Boys has already come out. So you could argue, and then I realized, oh, it's been about a year and a half since
Right,
the opening scene.
right.
And I bet you understand that more in the original cut.
Oh, right. Yeah,
Because
yeah.
at least the way time flies for me is like, oh, he meets adult Gertie, and then like they fall in love, and then so I'm like, oh shit, we're in '96 now. Holy shit. Okay, got it. Didn't
Okay,
know that.
okay.
So that was my first kind of observation was, holy shit, I thought we were still in
Mm.
'94.
My first observation was just the CGI, like Jay and Silent Bob during the Askewniverse title card. I was
It
like,
was so cute.
yeah, it was. And I'm like, oh, was this the only one that had? I can't remember if Jay and Silent Bob had it.
Oh,
Strike Back. Did
Strike
it
Back
have?
didn't. No, it
Okay,
didn't.
was this the only movie that had that?
I honestly can't remember if Clerks 2 had it also.
I can't either.
Oh,
Okay.
you know what? I'm pretty okay. I'm pretty sure Clerks 2 did. I
Okay.
don't know if it had the 10 years
Right,
because
right.
that was the gag for this was
Sure.
10 years since Clerks.
Yeah.
But I remember seeing the CGI versions of uh, the 2D animated series James and Bob more than
Mhm.
once before we eventually got to like a few other logos. Like they had like the
Right.
animated Smodco, and now we've got the newer.
Yes.
Yeah, there's so many now.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
that was, but I remember seeing this movie like opening weekend in theaters, and the whole crowd was like cheering just because. Hey, look, it's a cartoon of Jay
Oh,
and Bob. Whee!
yeah, I get that. 100%. I also really appreciated in the kind of like cold open of it all when we first kind of get introduced to little Gertie before we
Mm-hmm.
flash back, seeing was it Lady Aberlin played by Betty
Yes,
Aberlin? Yeah.
yes. She appears in a few. Yeah,
Yeah,
she's
yeah.
the
And then
nun in the beginning of Dogma.
that I remember that too. I
Yeah,
remember going like, "Oh my God, it's Betty Aberlin," but I watched her sing to Daniel Tiger many, many times. But and she was always like that soft, like sweet, benevolent force, like kind of like a kindly aunt or like your mom's best friend or something like that. Had that
kindly aunt
energy.
is a
Yeah,
very
and
good
it's so
description.
nice to see her have a little bit, she's got some teeth in these Askewniverse
Yes,
movies.
especially in because yeah, one of my favorite. This is one of the movies I probably watched the least, and
Yeah.
so I forgot just in the opening scene like. This is who are her parents and what they and all the kids go do, and she's like very nice droning, and
Yes.
and I
It
was
was
like,
wonderful.
like it tells you right off the bat, like we're still in a Kevin Smith movie.
Yes, we are. That made me really happy.
Yeah, and just her delivery of like, oh, seems to be a pretty popular song, "Memory" from Cats.
Are we
Like
going to move chronologically, or are you fine if we kind of jump around? Like, what do you want to
it's
do?
fine if you want to jump around. I just
Okay.
right now we're talking about her, so
Okay. Because also, I mean, you brought up cats, and immediately it just makes me want to ask, like, because it's one of the things that I'm just kind of like, did it have to be memory like over and over again? Like, I mean, would they allow that? I just feel like the Virgo in me kicks in. I'm just kind of like, who was in charge of this? This is awful. We're putting the parents through a lot, just asking them to come out and watch the kids perform, and everyone's just waiting for their own kid. But making them sit through memory 3 times by 3 separate families, that's bullshit. Somebody could have done like Gus the theater cat. Somebody could have done the old Gumby cat, and then that lucky first person could have gotten memory. Like whatever. But I was so upset. I was incensed over the disorganization of this talent show.
actually, you said that I only thought about that sort of logic for the first time on this viewing
Oh, okay.
because I
I
you know
know.
I always just thought like it's a gag, and I realize
Right.
now when I watch it, I'm like because I just want to call her Lady Everly,
Yeah.
the teacher. She
Yes.
she like acts surprised when you get to
Yeah.
like the second and the third, as if she wouldn't know, and as if
Yeah.
there isn't, someone who's kind of organizing the order of things, and that you would have already looked at the list before you went up on stage. And so, but that's when I go, no, 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 it's a fucking movie, and it's a movie gag.
Yeah.
This is not.
All they had to do to sell it, give Betty Aberlin a flask.
No, I'm already sold because it just feels like it's just straight up movie humor logic, and it's fine. However,
Sure, sure.
this was the year that I allowed myself to entertain the idea of like, yeah, but how did not only are the parents being sandbagged, but like also you as the host.
Yeah.
But
Somebody wrote this down. Someone knew that
but
this
to
was
answer your
happening, and
question though, Eddie,
somebody dropped the ball to answer my question.
to
Yes.
answer your question though, I would say that if a child, again, a first grader is like, I want to sing Memory, and then
Mm.
another kid goes, well, I want to sing Memory. Like I don't see an adult going, no, you could. We only get to have like, no, no. Who are you? A little kid wants this. Let us sing the cats. Like they want to do it, they can do it.
Yeah, I mean, I was never part of any kind of like school participatory programs like that weren't assigned numbers. Like we never got to volunteer
Oh,
our stuff. It was always like we would do like a May Day program, particularly in grade school. And I remember everybody would be assigned. There would be a theme, and everybody would do a song that like adhered to that theme. And I think my final year when I was in sixth grade, when sixth grade was still part of elementary school and not middle school yet, I was right before that. I remember it was musicals, and we got to do everybody covered musicals from different eras, and ours as the sixth grade class, we were the 50s, so we did Bye Bye Birdie and Grease. So that was fun. Hey, Grease is coming up a lot.
Yeah.
But anyway,
On Paramount Plus, man.
right.
No,
Yeah.
my school, the opposite. And I went to a Catholic school, which you'd think would have been stricter, but
Right.
that we had every year we had a lip sync contest, picked your own song, and they would approve it or not. And then every few years we had a talent show, and again you
Oh my
picked your own
God.
stuff.
Yeah. No, they didn't give us that much freedom at my elementary school, but it was a private school, not Catholic, but private. So I don't know. You tell me. Uh,
While we're on the subject of cats, though, to
yes.
this day, my takeaway, because this movie still lives in my head to a certain degree. There's certain things because anytime I see the poster for Cats, which happened a lot a few years ago with the movie,
Yeah.
I hear a little voice in my head that says, "Take her to see the Cats."
The
And then
Cats is a show?
that's the other thing I hear is Cats is a show, which I adore. That in his head, his granddaughter's like, I want to see, like, there's a place where they have cats.
Right.
He's like, hey, come on, take
Like
her to see
it's
the.
like one of those libraries or coffee houses where they like just have like free range like cats and people just get to sit there and pet them and read a book and sip their tea and everything, like maybe
Yeah,
like that. Maybe there's
or
a
what?
play area for the kids,
Yeah, either a
or
cat cafe or when you go to sometimes like there's a like Petco or PetSmart will have like open adoption
oh,
day
like
and
a
they have
festival.
it outside. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But
I would go. I would go.
almost every time this movie's title comes up, almost all my memories are Carlin based.
I get that. Yeah.
Um,
100%.
he'll come up a few more times in this, but can we see Cats? No, Cats is the second worst thing to happen in New York City. Probably one of my favorite post 9/11 jokes ever.
Yeah. It registered for me because again, I kind of went back. I don't come back to this one very often either. I haven't seen it since I think the late aughts. So like maybe 2008, 2009, something like that. And but I saw it often enough that I don't remember really being surprised by anything in this screening. I was like, yeah, it's still that movie I remember. Um, but yeah, that joke read to me, and it just made me wonder now that you mentioned it, like how many people there's so many people who are adults now who weren't around for 9/11, who
Mhm.
who didn't absorb our trauma and who might not know when they watch this movie, like, what's that about? But
I'm finding that with a lot of these early 2000s Kevin Smith movies. I just
really.
well, I just talked about in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back how there's some very like dated, very specific to the early 2000s references.
Oh wow.
And
Okay.
yeah, it's just new for me because usually it's just a kind of more generic the 80s
Hmm.
and the 90s, but now you're getting a very specific, maybe not even this movie, but just movies in general where it's like a flip phone era versus smartphone era, the
Hmm.
availability of the internet, as something that maybe everyone has in their home but doesn't use all the time, to like 5 years
Sure.
later you use it for everything, to like 5 years later it's in the palm of your hand. Like things change so quick.
Right,
And
absolutely. But one joke that will forever, or not even a joke, but just one line that will be forever relevant in its referentiality, it for
mm,
me was I forgot that was one thing I forgot. She's like, punch it, Chewie. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm back in a Kevin Smith movie.
that's one
For a
of the
while.
that's one of the things that stayed in my brain rent free. Like I look forward to it. I'm like, oh, she's gonna say punch it, Chewie.
Oh, and we know, okay, we like this girl.
That was when the movie first really endeared itself to me when I saw it in theaters. Was I'm like, here we are.
Yeah, okay, so speaking of here we are, can we talk about this? Because I made a note while I was making my way through, shall we say, Ollie's struggle with his grief and everything before he really, before he has kind of like the emotional catharsis with
Uh-huh.
his baby daughter and everything like that, and finally realizes he needs to step it up and be a man and be a father and all that. I just wrote this. I just want to read it because it's better to do that than try and paraphrase it. My first criticism is of the type of exchanges Ollie is having as he escapes his responsibilities as a father. They don't bring anything new to the table as far as movie dialogue or the situation for a screenwriter who up until this point wrote the kind of lines, whether heartfelt or commentative, I hadn't seen on screen before. Suddenly the words feel cliched and like vamping until we get to the Kevin Smith of it all. It got a little kind of lifetimey for me in the interim, and I was just kind of like, I don't. And okay, let's lay it all out. We've started recording, may as well dive in.
Yes,
um,
let's.
because there are so many good actors on stage who have less screen time than Ben Affleck, but and who might even it might seem like there's a jump maybe if you're reading it on the page, but you've got like people like George Carlin or Liv Tyler playing these roles and connecting the dots for you that it all feels kind of seamless. It all makes sense what their point of view is. And yet Ollie, I think, is the person I spend the most time with, and I feel like he's the character I'm the least dialed into what's motivating him in his transitions because he has a lot of them throughout the movie. I don't mean all of them, but I mean like the major ones, the ones where it's basically like bad dad to good dad, back to bad dad, and then
Hmm.
back to good dad. Feels a little zigzaggy and kind of written, you know. And I don't know what the ratio is in terms of like who might for whom shall I hold responsible? Like, is it Kevin Smith or is it Ben Affleck? Because something happened to me this screening that has never happened to me before, and because I think Ben Affleck also has some really great moments in this movie, multiple great moments. But I also think there's a lot where, like I said, I have trouble connecting the dots. And the second he was sitting in that meeting room with
Jason Lee and Matt
Jason
Damon.
Lee and Matt Damon. I saw Jason Lee and immediately thought I would have loved to have seen him play this role, play Ben Affleck's role. That that would that would have hurt because Jason Lee can play a jerk and still be immensely watchable, but also make sense and feel really like a level of authenticity that might be on par with everybody else. Because this is the thing, I don't think Ben Affleck's bad. I think it's just a matter of the preparation going in. He seems to be in the environments that he's in. He seems to be connected with the people that he's connected with in a kind of immediate, uh, 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 what's the word I'm looking for? Like with a kind of immediacy. Like he's in the moment. He's connected with these people. His reactions to them seem connected to their performances and spontaneous. That said, there's all this stuff that George Carlin and Liv Tyler and basically everybody else on screen. I feel like there's layers built into like secrets that they have, things that decisions they've made about their characters and where they're coming from that I don't necessarily feel all that much from Ben Affleck. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay. So that was what kind of struck me about this was I I the weird thing about it is I think that's where the issue with this movie comes up because a lot of people at the time, I remember, Kevin Smith included, seemed to kind of, diss this film,
Hmm.
kind of, or at least dismiss a lot about it and realize like, oh, it's just, whatever. Like, Jersey Girl's not part of like the Kevin Smith, like whatever. But there are, it lands for me. I wept multiple times during this particular
I,
screening. I knew every moment was coming, and it still seared into me, but it was never because of Ollie. It was because of what other people were responding to with him. I mean, it was like Liv Tyler going into the back room, the adult
mhm.
place. It was George Carlin saying, "Oh, he doesn't want to die alone." And it was even, I think, probably the moment that I connected to the most that was like Ollie based was just the fight, the climax between him and little Gertie
Yeah.
when he screams at her, what he screams at her, and I was a mess. So they work. This movie works really well at times, and yet there's other things I'm just like, I wish I knew what happened. Do you know what I
And
mean?
when you say
Yeah.
that, I can't help but wonder if any of that's tied to what was cut out,
I wonder. I don't know.
especially some of the things about what you're saying about what's driving him. Because I wonder if any of that's also in the missing like 40 minutes in the beginning or whatever. Because
Hmm.
the only like the hint of it that I have to remind myself, because my thing, and I wish I didn't have a thing,
Hmm.
but I have like at least with this viewing, it never really something about me getting older. This is the first time I've really thought about it on this viewing.
Hmm.
Is just the fact that he's having a kid with the woman he loves,
Yeah.
and he isn't immediately just putting that kid as priority number one.
Yeah.
And and this is how long it's been since I've seen it. Because I think the last time I saw it was maybe like 2011, 2012, twenty
Hmm.
thirteen, maybe.
Hmm.
Um, I've had so many friends have kids, and even though I don't have kids, I understand that. And every time I've said this to a parent, they've just immediately nodded. It's like when I say I don't want to have kids, it's because I still put myself first,
Hmm.
and I'm not prepared to live my life for a whole nother being. But like from
Right.
what I understand, like when you're a parent, your life is all about raising them.
Hmm.
And every parent like nods their head.
Yeah.
Every single parent I've ever talked to. And I just didn't understand. I'm like, but then this guy just doesn't.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't like I couldn't understand how you could be going to the doctor and having all this and still not having that be your priority.
Hmm.
Uh, and then it took me till after I saw the movie and was still just kind of trying to like reckon with it
Yeah.
that I realized like what it comes down to is when he's late for Lamaze.
Yeah.
I mean, I get it. Like, you still want to be the Liv Tyler like says it twice. You're not that guy anymore, and he keeps saying like
Yeah.
this is the only thing I was ever good at.
Yeah.
But the fact that even while like Lamaze is happening and J Lo sees it, she's like, only way this is gonna work is if
Hmm.
like you start to like shift things because like I have a
Hmm.
job, but I'm still here.
Yeah.
You need to find a way to have your job and still be here. And I'm like, okay. I think the thing that I had to adjust to after the fact was just that this guy simply not ready to be a dad. Like
Yeah.
his brain, and I judge him for it, is
Right.
still about my job and doing the press release for this new album and blah, 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 and the parties. And I'm like, the fact that you still want all that while
Hmm.
you're going to have a kid or
Yeah.
have a kid. I mean, maybe I just don't judge you so much, and I don't judge the movie for creating a character that I don't find believable. It's just like, no, you created a very specific character. Because when you look at, let's say, you take 100 people or 1,000 people, they're not all going to be the same. There's going to be little anomalies and little, you know, ticks, different conditions, different, you know. And I guess I
Yeah.
just found this one guy who's like, well, I'm going to have a kid, but like, boy, I am just not ready to be a father. Like, I just don't get it. I don't
Yeah.
understand it. And I don't know if you want to go into like a deep psychological dive about, when his mom died and
Right.
how much time he spent being raised by Carlin,
Hmm.
but I can't help it. Somewhere in those 40 minutes beyond that one Lamont scene, do we see more about like why he is? Because right now,
Hmm.
all I have is a what he is, and I don't fully get it aside from you're just not ready. You got to grow up, which
Right.
is recurringly kind of a theme with some of the other Kevin Smith characters is, man, you need to grow
Yeah.
up. Like Brody, you need to suck it up and introduce Renee to your mom. You know,
Right. Right. But
Dante, you got to figure out what you want and kind of go for it a bit.
yeah, I think that what another thing that just kind of throws me that I have to wonder like is the Jennifer Lopez stuff the only stuff that's missing from like this Kevin Smith cut also because everything that you've brought up is true and I agree with you. And but then it happens again for me later because like yeah, he has all of that with Mama Gertie and then she dies and then he escapes for the first month of his child's life, you know, any responsibilities and then has his little cathartic moment and stuff, which I I always kind of check my watch at that point. I'm just kind of like, okay, cool. Let's apologize to your daughter. Let's watch you be a father. Let's watch you be a father. And because I'm right there with George Carlin. He wrote him that great line where he's just kind of like, what did he say to him? Try acting like her father, shithead, because that's exactly the attitude of the audience watching Ollie up until that point. But when so after he has the catharsis and he spends was it 7 years after that? How long?
Yeah.
Yeah, 7 years after
Yeah,
that.
Gertie age 7. So yeah.
Yeah, Gertie age 7. So he's there with her. Does that math work? 1990. Well, I guess it's 97 by then.
96, and then 7 years. It's like roughly 2003.
2003, 4,
Maybe,
10.
again.
Maybe it's New Year's. Anyway,
Yeah, no, but
okay. Something like that. Okay. I was just wondering, and it was the first time I thought about it. I was just always kind of accepted. Okay, she's 7 and it's 1994 or 2004. Woo.
well, and I think they're filming in 2003, so it'll.
Okay, cool. Oh, so they're filming in 2000. All right, whatever it is. So Gertie is now 7 years old and he seems really well adjusted. He's even got like the highlights in his hair and everything like that. He's not all dark, hard, like Ben Affleck. He's all kind of soft and little auburn Ben Affleck. Did you notice that?
Yes, well, I was gonna not to sidetrack, but I had to wonder, like, so is he dyeing his hair dark back when he was working?
Uh,
And now that or is it just like, oh, I work outside and I drive this thing and look, my hair got lighter because I'm in the sun I don't know.
oh, I didn't think about that. I
Yeah.
just thought about it from a technical thing. I just thought, well, it makes him look softer,
I
you
just
know?
thought maybe, maybe he was like gelling it or it was wet, but it looks
Uh-huh.
darker when he's on the job, but
He's squeezing
now.
a lemon on his head and then going
Yeah.
out and yeah.
Yeah.
But what in any event,
1994, 96, I think gel was still kind of
yeah. And
yeah.
he's got very much like a Yuta Bomb and Phantoms kind of era
Yeah.
look.
But I feel
But
what you're leading up to is the fact that he's pretty much a good dad. And then,
yeah,
oh, I got this interview. I'm going to go back to New York. I'm going to be a piece of shit. Like,
right, right. Because also that was another thing. That was the thing that I wish that needle could have been threaded for me in a more complete way because I understood. This is the thing. When he went out and sat down with Jason Biggs with Arthur. Also, Jason Biggs, so good. Like he does very little in this movie, but he does it really well. Just like this one, again, another benevolent force that I'm just kind of like, I like you on site. I like how much you're when Ollie first comes to work after Mama Gertie dies, the way he's kind of wrestling with how much he's like walking a tightrope with him, like how much do I actually say? Is this a good moment to interject? Like you can see all of that going on in that scene in a very subliminal way. I really appreciate it. And then when he comes back and he's sitting there having dinner with him in Manhattan, asking him to get him this job. Arthur responds so kindly and everything like that. All of that I got. I understood why he would have an inclination. Like again, it worked for me. The way that he kind of accessed his Ollie, accessed his old gifts, his strengths to initiate change in the world that he was occupying in the present. But he was using these past strengths. He wanted to kind of like see, can I still do that in Manhattan? Can I still, is there still a life waiting for me out there? I can understand why he would even miss things about that,
mhm.
because he was ejected from that. He didn't leave voluntarily. So when he was happy, I was happy. Then he gets home and all of a sudden it's not just about like I got a new job, we need to figure this out. It was about I got a new job, I've got all our problems solved, I'm going to uproot my daughter from everything she knows and I'm going to talk shit about these people to their faces.
Yeah, that's the
And,
rough part.
oh my god, and I'm just going to act like I'm going to go right back to square one, being the most important person in the room, whose desires are the only ones that exist and who has the clear answer, and everybody needs to get on board. And if not, I'm just going to act like a shithead. And it really, really bothered me. I was just kind of like, where was all that growth that just happened? Like, and I wish I feel like what's missing for me in a way, like I guess I could do my own headcanon or my own speculation about it. But what's missing for me is, what does Jersey mean to you? What are you ashamed of? Or, like you mentioned, his mother, like, what are you outrunning? What is it that is so difficult to take about this life that you're going to achieve? And the funny thing is, the writing clearly enough lays it out, I think, on a pretty surfacey level. But
Yeah,
I want to know what's going on. Why? Well,
Yeah.
if as the therapist, if I were a therapist, I'd be like, why does what does Jersey mean to you?
See, it's interesting that you have that question because, like, at least I don't. Because, but again,
Okay.
pretty superficial. But like, it's driving a garbage truck and living in this home with your dad, or
Mhm.
living in a penthouse apartment in the city, going to things right to wear a nice suit. Like, I think I understand what the city is to you, but I mean, you're asking more, and that's. But like, I
Because he
thought,
seemed happy. And even when he like I'm asking the same
well,
question little Gertie's asking, which is like, you said that you were glad that you didn't have to wear a suit. Were you lying? Like, that's what I want to know. Like, have you been
yeah,
lying for 7 years? Like, what
I
is
think he
this?
finds. I find. I mean, at least for me, the happiness he is finding is in her.
Mm.
And then when the carrot's dangled, like, but you could have more. You could have what you used to have.
Hmm.
So I don't have to just find happiness in my daughter. I could also go to parties and have nice suits again. Like,
I just wish I
but
don't
yeah,
understand.
I see what you
I
mean.
don't understand
I'm
why
just
everything has to turn
satisfied
on a
enough.
dime. Yeah,
Oh,
I'm
absolutely.
yeah. Like, and I
I
know I understand that's part of the conflict, but it just felt a little like just fill in the blanks for me and I'll be on the ride with you
it's almost like
100%.
he almost caged that monster, and
Hmm.
then that interview or just the conversation to have an interview. Like, well, the monster's out again.
Yeah.
Because that's the way the fact that it turns on a dime seemingly
Uh-huh.
without enough track laid character wise, that's just the only way I could see it, is that like, boy, he was like this ravenous monster, and he put him
Yeah.
away and now it's back.
It
It's
makes
just,
me wonder if in that flashback with Mama Gertie, like while she's getting to know his father and everything like that, if we got to know a little bit more about the way he saw Jersey, even if there was like some kind of reference
right,
from his father, like, I mean, even if there'd just been a line of just like, you always felt like, fill in the
you're
blank.
better than this, yeah.
Yeah, something like that. This was never enough for you, you could have just stayed put, but you always were looking across the road, like just something like that could have just,
Well, yeah,
I take lines like that, like, really, really, like, I'm just like,
I get a bit of that when
know?
he goes on a date with her and they're in Central Park. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah,
Well, I'm showing you where you and me and mommy used to live.
right.
Like, I'm still looking across, at it to a certain degree. Like,
Yeah,
there's
but
so many things you can do in New York besides looking at your old apartment.
I
I
was actually
get it. It's
glad. But I understood why he took it to Central Park because it's like the one place where you can, kind of like be peaceful with your kid, potentially. Like, I mean, New
mhm.
York is a pretty crazy place and don't want to overwhelm the child on the first day. She already saw Sweeney Todd.
And loved it.
And fucking, I just love when she's sitting there leaning on the seat, just absorbing it. Like,
Yeah.
there's no
Ben
reaction. She's just like,
reacts.
wow. Yeah, Ben's the one
Yeah.
who reacts, but I just love seeing little Gertie, just sit there and just kind of like absorb it the way a child would, and you're like wondering, how is she processing this? And we know she's like, I want to do that.
Yeah.
It makes me really
But
happy.
and I think it's because she's, I mean, it's her character, not me. But because
Yeah.
I think I saw Sweeney Todd for the first time when I was, I think, between 11 and 13.
Mm. Yeah, I was about 13, 14 when I saw it the first time. Yeah.
But I don't know if they actually did, but I feel like my eyes widened and I was like, wait, musicals can be this? Like, clouds parted, my scope of the world just got a little bit bigger, and
Yeah.
I did not know musicals could be this. What a like, and it just
Yeah.
instantly, to this day, it's in my top three. Like, it's,
Yeah, and to this day, it's still on a very short list of like horror musicals,
yep.
essentially. Like anytime they're like, any uh uh website or what have you, .com is going to come up with a comprehensive list of like, 5 best musicals to watch around Halloween time in
Oh yeah.
October. Like it's always going to make the list. But and the
Rocky
one that pre
Horror, Repo,
Little Shop.
Little Shop.
Little Shop was the first horror musical for me. So when I saw Sweeney Todd, I was just like, ooh, another one. But
Mm-hmm. And then and there's a bunch also, but they're all like, they haven't reached the same heights. Like,
mhm,
and they're all based on, movies. But I was would say like Carrie, Evil Dead, Reanimator. They're all
mhm.
adapted, and they're all kind of smaller. They're off Broadway.
Yeah, depending on what production of Jekyll and Hyde you see, like it might
That's
lean into
true.
the horror a bit more, but yeah. Uh, I like that show, but not every incarnation. Anyway, I
But yes, Ben Affleck's turn in that scene. Yeah. Let's go
yeah,
back because the one part about that, well, not there's a lot in that scene to chew on, but the one that
there
really gets
is.
me, besides speaking so definitively, like, this is what we're gonna do. This is where we're gonna like. He didn't even turn to his dad and go like, "Hey, I might have this job opportunity, and I'm thinking, can we maybe plan what it would be like for me to go?" It's just, "Hey, we're out of here,"
Right.
and the way that like no more staying in dad's house, and just like, well, what's so fucking bad about living with me? And the one
No.
that kills me is like, no more picking up garbage, and then like we cut to I forget their names, like
Jay and Silent Bob.
Jay and Silent Bob, yeah. Um, they're in the room. They
Yeah.
can hear you when you are essentially shitting on them and saying that what
Mm.
they do and what they are isn't good enough.
Yeah.
And uh, it's an interesting choice that, for the most part, on paper, I would say Ollie is an unlikable lead.
Sure.
If you were to describe his even when he becomes a better dad,
Hmm.
you find out he's still that's the also the slight justification of why that turn feels to me slightly believable, is because we know every few months he tries to do an interview in the city. So like 7 years later, he's still pursuing it. His dad is like, "Why do you keep going on these interviews? You know they don't
Yeah.
want you." So he's still been trying.
Yeah.
Um, but he number one, he is selfish.
Hmm.
Even like as a father, he's making very specific choices, for her. Well, not for her, choices about where she's going to go to school, where she's going to live, but it's all in the service of him. And again, as
Hmm.
a parent, to be
Hmm.
like, well, I want to go work late and go to parties, and I want to do this. And just
Hmm.
the fact that he is so dismissive out loud in front of other people that their city, that this house, that their job, that who they are isn't good enough. I'm like, why am I rooting for you? I guess I want you to, I am hoping for you to grow up and get better, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, but there are times where it's hard, when he's really in that mode, and I like him so much more when he's like I honestly I am rooting for him after the Will Smith speech, where I'm like, you get it, you fucking
Yes.
dummy. When he looks up and goes like, Gertie, you couldn't have made this easy for me. I'm like, I mean, he needs to be on that journey, but I mean, man, I wish I could have been following this guy a lot more, because it hurts to watch the other
Hmm.
guy a lot. Hurts to the degree that at the end of the movie, when I think he's dancing with Liv Tyler, and then
Yeah.
Gertie's like, "Can I join in?" She's like, "Will you take care of
Hmm.
him?" Like he's one in a million, or he's one of the good ones. He's one of the best. I
Yeah.
forget
So,
what
something
they
like that.
say,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and I'm like, he is
Yeah. I know. I think it's because he
like
came through in the clutch and because women have
he
really low standards for
he came,
men.
I guess,
Because they
yeah,
have to.
he came through. He came through in this moment, but I'm thinking about everything I've seen, and I'm like, no, I mean, he might be becoming a good dude, I hope, but from everything you presented to me, I would never look at that character and go,
I
"He's one of the
know.
good ones."
Yeah.
No,
I would have preferred she said something like, "Yes, you can. You keep this one in line."
sure,
You know?
keep him on the right track.
Exactly. You
But
keep you keep him you keep him grounded. You ground him, Gertie. You
for
keep him on
someone
the rails.
behaved so poorly, I would never give him such a regal kind of uh, declaration at the end. And
But
and again,
yeah, go sorry, go finish your
and
thought.
not to pick this apart, because again, like, I'm a pretty big Kevin Smith stan, and I
Yeah.
and I own this movie on fucking two different physical media copies. So
Yeah.
clearly, I like it,
Yeah.
but also I understand structurally how he keeps saying that job was the only thing I was ever good at. So the nice payoff at the end is when he looks
Yeah.
at Gertie and says, "You're the only thing I was ever good at."
Yeah.
However, don't think of it in movie writing terms as payoff. Think of it within the character terms and everything that he's gone through. When he says, "You're the only thing I've ever been good at," I'm like, well, no, you've been pretty. No, it's not true.
Again,
You were going to
yeah.
go to a job interview to move to a city she doesn't want to move to. And like, you fucked up a lot in this movie. Like,
Yeah.
and that's fine if we're telling the story of a fuck up who gets better,
Hmm.
but it just doesn't totally match that line.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's the thing. That is kind of like I think my overall if I have an overall critique of the movie, because this is the thing. It's not a
Dismissal.
dismissal. Thank you. That's the word I'm looking for. Dismissal of this movie. I don't write it off. I was moved by it and I like it. I just think it's thus far, as far as the films you and I have been discussing, as far as like Kevin Smith's filmography thus far. Um, this is the one that I have the most notes about, and I'm not going to unpack all that. I'm not going to say, and also on page 45, when I would change about that. But I mean, just overall, like I think it feels like it could have had like maybe one more draft. I don't know how many hands this passed through in terms of just getting feedback from people who with the express intention of like what needs to be worked on. I don't know how if Kevin Smith is even that kind of writer, or at this point if he was that kind of writer, or just wanted to get the damn movie made, dumped his heart on the page, and that is really clear because one thing that I do like about the course of when Bad Dad Ollie Part Two um,
Mm.
is it break oh I get so moved just thinking about it when little Gertie's laying there asleep and he's watching her and she wakes up and he apologizes and she's holding the picture of Mama Gertie and she just starts excusing, kind of everything that he's done and accepting his apology and apologizing for her stuff too. And I'm just like, oh, you sweet little girl. And I'm so sad because the word benevolence keeps coming up. And maybe it's just decency, just human compassion, or, like the way people manifest love in the space between them. And I feel like what she was doing was, yes, forgiving him, but also accepting him, giving him room to be who he was. And that's the thing that really broke my heart was the fact that he has been shitty. Like, I mean, everything that transpired about that particular interaction is the shitty dad that she didn't know because he wasn't around when she was a month old. Everything he seemed to do from then seemed pretty cool, like a guy
Mhm.
doing his best. And then he tripped up in a huge way and she forgave him and again gave him the space and started to accept her fate, that like
Mm.
maybe you're right, maybe I'm sure I'll like this and everything that you said, I'll try kind of thing. And I was just like, I need him to make the right decision now, and I'm glad that I'm in a Kevin Smith movie because I know he will. But on an emotional level, it wasn't just like seeing kind of like the course that the writing is taking and identifying like, okay, so clearly he's going to. I was so connected with it that I sat intently, just patiently waiting to see what's going to put him over the top. And the thing that did turn him around, I bought. I
Mhm.
totally bought.
Well, structurally, you could just after the fight not have that scene and he just comes to that realization on his own. But
Right.
to me, it's more interesting that he's already absolved by her.
Yeah.
So now he's doing the right thing because in his heart it's the right thing and not because he's trying to make it up to her because of the fight. Like
No.
the fight is now over. You've
Hmm.
been given the green light.
Yeah.
It's you that has to figure this out,
Yeah. And I do
you know.
appreciate that. It's that things like that. See, I just wish it were a little bit more consistent throughout the film. Because me,
Well,
I love headcanon. I love sitting there and like
sure,
connecting the dots and
but
like,
depending on what
I
it
bet you
is,
anything this, and
but
stuff like that.
depending on what gaps are in a movie, there's times where you shouldn't have to do headcanon. But yeah, headcanon
Mhm.
can be great. Um, yeah, I won't get into it. I have some headcanon that cracks me up. That's stupid, and I love it. I love having these little things in my head. But the
Yeah.
other thing that I like about that scene too is we, much like you were saying, there's little things that you wish you helped you understand Ollie, but everything for Gertie's there. I love that
Hmm.
it's not just that she, shows him grace and absolves him and all that. It's the fact that she finds her own way in, which is, well, did mom like living there? Yeah, then I will too. Like she is a character, does her own work and finds her way in.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think it's beautiful that it's through her mom.
Yeah. That's another part that breaks my heart is like in his little tirade when she talks about, Uncle Jay and Uncle Silent Bob. And he just says, they are not your uncle. Like, no, but we're good enough to just build the set and everything like
Right.
that. And I was just kind of like, oh my God. And there's just like her little world. Like they've literally built this little world that she spun from like the thing she's had the things that she wanted, she couldn't get them, so he took her somewhere else, she found what she wanted in that, they built this incredible world, and he is like not literally but like metaphysically tearing it asunder by saying I'm
Yeah.
not going to be there because this is important. And oh, it just kills me. But
It also kills me that how many years has she been calling them uncle? And he's just saying they're not your uncles. Yeah, they fucking are.
yeah,
But
they
again,
are.
that's what makes him a different character than me. And it's, but
Yeah.
again, he's got things to learn because if I were him, I'd let them be uncles by now.
One. I mean,
But again, this is the separation between city boy and Jersey life, and boy, do you got to get over it, man.
yeah, it makes me
Can't
think just
fucking
like
yeah.
what well, it just makes me think like what kind of bonds are sacred to him then? Because like the one to his daughter wasn't initially, and he tripped up on that in a big way 7 years later. And then obviously the bonds with I don't again, I don't know. There seems to be this disconnect between him and his father, and I want to know why. And of course, between I just looked it up, it's Greenie and Block.
There you
Stephen
go.
Root is Greenie and Mike Starr is Block. Love them both. Character actors
Oh
for
yeah,
in everything and deserve to be in everything. Just give them everything.
yeah,
But seen Mark Starr play gangsters in so many things, but or hitmen in so many
yeah.
things. But
Pills are good. Pills are good.
but but I think also like the thing that it's not to the degree, but it's something else that I kind of bump up against is every now and then there's like a sentimentality where I'm like, well, you could have just done the thing, like the pause that we get when he comes back, when Ollie finally is Sweeney and everything, and we have almost like what is it, a 15-second pause of a take with her going and him
Oh
going,
yeah.
basically, and her going and everything. I'm just kind of like, okay, well, and that maybe it's because I'm also a Sondheim purist. I'm sitting there going like, well, he could have started singing, is this a chair bit for a king? Oh, one, and she could just be like forgetting her lines and not singing while he's doing it. And you can still do it in real
Oh yeah.
time, but just a little. Yeah, I mean, I still like it. And again, like this is the thing for me. Like if there is sentimentality that I bump up against, it doesn't ruin anything for me. Like even there was one thing at the very end that I was just kind of like, um, okay, just like when they're dancing and they're just looking at each other and they seem to be moving in real time, slowly, but in real time as the camera slowly dollies away from them, and they're looking at each other for a long time at all, and it pulled me out a little because all I could think about like what must it have been like for those two actors to like have to just like sit there and just like hold each other's gaze like that, like as the camera's pulling back. So technically I'm already kind of like pulled out of the moment, but then she
Mm,
just, because I was like all she had to do was hold him, and then she just falls into his embrace, and they just hold each other, and then I started weeping like a baby. Like it didn't it doesn't ruin anything for me because I get what I want. I just have to wait a few seconds. That's what
interesting.
this movie is for me. I think is that I'll get what I want. Sometimes I just got to wait a little bit. That's what it gets the job done. Like Ollie,
That,
you just got to wait a bit for it
that
to be what you're waiting for.
and that reminds me, not to get like too, hey, did you know? But one little thing is, I know that they did a version of the last shot, just in case they did more than one, but they did a version of the last shot where adult Gertie steps into the spotlight and joins. So the three of them are kind of, and then
Oh,
and then ultimately they're like, no, we'll keep it just dad and daughter. We don't need it, but just in case we need it, like let's shoot it.
yeah. In terms of
Good
you
call
have
though.
to, yeah, I definitely think so. Because when you're talking about grief, you have to walk a very, very fine line because anything that feels, you're dealing with, especially as someone who, has suffered great loss in his life and everything like that, loved ones and stuff like that. When I see stuff like that, if I feel like I'm being, I guess, condescended to or stroked,
Yeah.
it'll turn me off. This movie doesn't do that. But that if that had been the final shot, I might have been like, okay. I mean, she will always be there, but really, that moment should be about the two of them. I would have wanted
Yeah.
the ending that we got because it's going to be the two of us now. Like I'm committed to you, and you know that now, and that's what the embrace is about. It's about disarming because that's the thing. Also, maybe just like
Yeah.
holding a stare is maybe a little too confrontational for me, whereas just losing yourself in an embrace
Hmm.
and just kind of like being held indefinitely. I words. I don't want to cry, so I don't want to talk about it
Oh,
anymore.
okay, fine. We won't talk about it. No, no. But you did mention the word grief. I'll move away from that. But we did talk about the word
Yeah,
grief, and that's another
yeah.
thing is that I may be having a hard time at first reconciling all these actions, and then realizing it's just as simple as he's not ready yet. But
Mhm,
also, I'm he's going through a very specific grief filter that I can't relate to. So
mhm.
there's a whole nother level of me not understanding. Uh, I mean, Lord knows I've been through death and grief, but not with what he's going through.
That's true.
However, I do. While we're kind of, I do want to say that there have been two moments, well, more than two, but when he gets the news in the hospital,
Hmm.
uh, well done, because like I have been in a situation like that where like that
Mm.
level of, and then the drop to the knees, and I'm like, that's not a overreaction. That's not acting. That is that like I'll never forget one time I was at a funeral. Let's
Mm.
bring it down.
No,
I
go
was at
for
a
it. Go for
funeral
it.
in the classic style. It was a casket that was going to get lowered into the ground. Um, and there was a grieving wife who climbed onto it,
Hmm.
punched it, and screamed
Hmm.
up to the sky. And I'm like,
Hmm.
wow, that really happens. Like
Yeah, it
people's
does.
feelings can get that big.
Yeah.
So like there's a lot that Affleck plays during the grief within the first half. Like one of my favorite parts of the movie, it's not even dialogue. It's the shot of him and Carlin at the funeral.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, because I've been through like a post death. It's not the same with the mouth agape and but like I'll never forget like that I was sort of for several weeks like I felt like I was in a fog.
Yeah.
Like I just was sort of removed and out of it. Like my brain was moving my feet for me. My
Hmm.
hand was handing me food, but like I wasn't in control. And I kind
Yeah.
of would look back on that month. I'm like, man, I wasn't like there. I was and
Yeah.
I look at Affleck sitting at that in that chair, and I'm like, oh man, he's in the fog.
Yes, he
He's a
is.
little more hurt and a little more angry, but he's in the fog. Well
Yeah.
done, well done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree. There's something to be said about like the way time seems to kind of like no longer exist. It doesn't even stop. It just kind of ceases to be a factor. Like it's light outside, so I guess that means it's day, it's day. You know, like
Yeah.
whenever you're in the shock of it, and everybody experiences it at a different time, but it is something that I can definitely recognize. And even I'll jump on what poor use of metaphor, but I'll I'll piggyback I
Mm.
guess, on like what you just shared in terms of my first exposure at there you go. There I am. Uh no, my first exposure to death to somebody close to me. I was still in grade school, like who knows how old I was, but it was an aunt who I didn't know terribly well. And I remember just going to the viewing, and it was the first time I saw a dead body, and my mom was like warning me like, she's gonna look different. And I was like, okay, but I just wanted to see it. She's like, are you sure? Because I don't want you to get scared. And I'm like, no, I'll be fine. And I was, but I was just like, oh, that's what it looks like. It looks different, you know? There's something to be said for like a body that's got life in it and a body that doesn't. Because I'd
Mm.
only seen movies up until then. And in movies, they never have a dead person play a dead person. It's either, something they've built and engineered that look it has its own energy, or it's an actor playing dead,
Laying still, yeah.
which is not the same thing. Like when the life is gone from a body, they're very, very different.
The
And
muscles relax a
everything,
completely different way. There's no blood flow.
yeah,
Yeah, like you're still,
everything
yeah.
seems smaller. Yeah, it's strange. So I'm just like, well, not everything, not everybody. It depends on the person, but she did. I was just like, she seems smaller than before. There's something about her that doesn't seem quite as there's just a disconnect. And I was like, okay, so that's what it's like. Literally, the life has just gone, and now it's just this empty shell. Okay, I'll carry that with me from now on. But then we went to the burial, and something similar happened where I think it was her son, uh, one of my cousins, just threw himself onto the coffin just before it was going to be lowered and scream sobbed. And this was a guy, he was like in his late teens, early 20s. I'd never seen him. He was always just kind of, happy go lucky, whatever. Just, doesn't give a care. Kind of a dickish energy, if I'm being honest. And I always got to read on him, like I shouldn't hang out with you because you might be mean to me. And then I see this guy just completely, stripped of like any of those safeguards, any of that armor that you carry into your daily practice, maybe not even knowing that you are. And he was just a raw nerve, and he was screaming and he was crying. There weren't even words. I can still hear it though. And I remember being kind of like stunned, and I didn't know what to do. I was in my own fog at that particular moment, and my mom just led me away. And I just remember being, led in another direction while my legs, I guess they're moving. I don't know. But I was riveted. I couldn't stop looking at him. And then I realized, oh, that's probably rude, And so I didn't, as we got farther and farther away from him, because my mom did not stop walking me away. I think we walked to the car. I didn't keep looking over my shoulder. At a certain point, I was like, oh, okay, now it's just rude. So let's just keep going to the car. I can hear him though. Wow. And again, my mom's checking in, like, are you okay? Are you afraid? I'm like, no, I'm good. I mean, and she's like, yeah, okay, okay, you're fine. I'm like, I'm okay. And anyway, yeah. So moving through it's always a very, very specific thing, and I never want it to feel like a generic thing. And the thing that I think warms me the most is to see little Gertie still holding that bond with, like the photograph of her mother and just the idea of her mother, the way she asks questions about her. Because I've observed that in a lot of my friends who lose a parent before memory or before birth, or at birth or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
um, where they almost become kind of like, just a mystery. Just, like they'll always like lean in and almost listen on a different frequency and talk about them like in a different tone than they do about anything else in their life. And I feel like that's really present um, in the direction and in the performance of little Gertie and the way she carries her idea of her mother. So I'm really happy for that. Grateful for that. So yeah.
Grateful for that as well. I hate every once in a while where I'm just like, I agree.
No, you're Affleck. You're
I'm
sad
Affleck.
Affleck.
Yeah, but not sad about it. But just that without the sad pushing,
Yeah, right.
I
Without
completely
the
agree.
hello darkness, my old
My old
friend.
friend. Can I
Um,
can I pivot to something
go
after
for it.
all this grief and death
Yes.
and dead moms and stuff?
Yeah.
Um, let's talk about Maya.
Let's talk about Maya.
Maya, I find very interesting,
Yeah.
and there are, she's not quite, manic pixie dream girl, but
No.
she is quirky. That's
Yeah.
okay. It
Yeah.
makes me like her. However, the one thing that kind of pokes in my brain, and this isn't a bad thing. I said, however, like as if it is, but there are times
Yes.
where I feel like this plucky girl who works in a video store who just casually wants to bone a dude
Right.
and like listens to like, oh yeah, man, like this is like male writer fantasy. Like she's
Hmm.
cool, she's whatever. Let's go home. You need to get boned. I'll bone you. Oh man, does that sound great? Boy, does that sound just like a dude wrote this. But two things. One,
Yes.
Liv
Yes.
Tyler elevates it. And
Yeah.
two, I have to remind myself that it isn't necessarily as simple as like, well, a dude wrote it, male fantasy. Girls can be sex positive. They
Hmm.
exist. In
Yeah.
fact, she reminded me of like two people I know in real life who I'm like, oh wait, I do know, like specifically, I do know a girl who's very like, yeah, let's. I'm like, we can't pigeonhole the idea of just like, I don't know how I'm trying to word this, but like
No, I know.
this isn't complete fantasy. I'm just saying it's not maybe the norm, but I respect the approach to the idea of just like, hey man, I tried to bone you that one time, but we're friends now. We're
Yeah.
cool. But
Yeah.
like, I want to hear about your masturbation stories and just like, come on. But she really makes it work. She makes it work so good, in fact, that
Yeah.
like the standout scene is the diner scene because when she's explaining how like sometimes I masturbate like twice a day. And he's like, what? I got like hints of like Alyssa and
Ooh.
the two of them on the swings. And again, Affleck kind of being a little more uptight, a little more pearl
Yeah.
clutchy, a little more conservative in his view of things. And then a
Mm.
woman just explaining, like, no, no, this is how it is. And there's
Hmm.
no shame in just saying, yeah, like I double click my mouse twice a day sometimes. It's healthy to have this. He is really good at writing like sexually conservative, uptight men.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. This thing about the pixie dream girl and everything like that definitely exists as far as like, the male gaziness of it all. So I'm never going to pretend like it doesn't. That said, and I'm not going to pretend that like Kevin Smith is immune to that either. But like I'm glad you brought up Chasing Amy because I remember him getting a lot of criticism for, again, we covered this in depth in the Chasing Amy one, so I won't go down the path. I'll just point to it. When he would get accused of like writing lesbians like it's, in an inauthentic way. And I'm like, what? But she's not a lesbian. So do with that what you will. Anyway,
Uh-huh.
with this particular character, she actually made me think, because we are two dudes talking about this. I used to think because I was gay, I had a little more insight to the workings of the female mind and emotional wheelhouse, I guess. And growing older, I realized no, there are plenty of things that I still have questions about where I'm like, oh, I'm still very much a dude. And not just because it's how I identify, but it's because the world treats me a particular way. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
okay. Um, and so now all I have is questions. I'll literally, well, what movie was it? I watched something that I just had to post. Oh, I think it was Poor Things. And I'd only talked to guys who had seen it. So I just put out my feelers like, have any women seen this movie? Because I need to know. And I sent a bunch of my friends out to go see it, and I haven't talked to them about it yet. I have to do that. Anyway, the way it pertains to this, it made me think about another podcast that I've been listening to. It's the Scout Taylor Compton, Danielle
Hmm.
Harris podcast. And they have this thing that they talk about in their past, which is the cool girl syndrome, which is where they both went through the thing where they would slough things off and evade their feelings and try to make
Mm.
things as easy as possible for guys and be the cool girl. So they wouldn't get, sloughed off and pushed into like, the girl zone, like no, this girl's cool. Like she gets me. She understands. She doesn't get all like emotionally caught up in shit and make
Right.
me, accountable for things I've done. What the fuck is up with that? And how they both, in retrospect, now that they're adults, realize how damaging that was to them because inside their hearts were breaking, but they were breaking silently, which is exactly what is happening with Maya. But
Mm-hmm.
even that, and that actually helped with this particular screening. But I remember even before this screening, when I'd watch it, kind of feeling the trappings of everything you're talking about, but feeling like Liv Tyler solved so many of the issues with just her level of authenticity and the way she occupies her environments, the way she seems to, and Christina Ricci does this too for me in every movie she's in, seems to just kind of like own her situation. Like I'm just even because here this is the thing. It's 2003, 2004, and I'm watching a movie about a video store that still only carries VHS. Highly
Yeah.
implausible. But
Okay.
but I think this is the first time I caught that. Like I said, I remembered most of this movie as I'm moving through it, and I'm like, oh, I never realized it's all just VHS. Huh. I mean, even the places that I went to that still carried VHS, because it was like usually the only way you could see that particular film or taping of something, like
Yeah.
it hasn't been made into DVD yet. So if you need to watch it, this is how you do it. Um, but I was looking the whole time during the scenes. I was like looking, I was paying attention, but looking for DVDs anywhere. I didn't see any.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, still never made me question like, oh, this isn't real because she's, it's all VHS. No, her level of reality and the fact that even the way she had behind the counter, the way he asks for another porn title, and the way she kind of immediately knows what to reach for to put in his
Mm-hmm.
stack. I'm like, that's what it's like working in a video store, especially if you're working alone. You kind of hold dominion over that place, and um, the ownership of it just really, really it spilled into everything with that character. to the point where I wrote another. It's not as long as the other thing I wrote, but I just said, see, I get what Maya's doing. She's protecting herself from getting hurt or even making things awkward and potentially ruining whatever her situation is or could be with Ollie. It's not even about like I think it's not even as pronounced or specific as I can't ruin things because then we'll never be together. It could also just be like whatever this is, I just kind of want it to keep happening. I think it's that vague because it's
Mm-hmm.
that she doesn't strike me as a journaler, you know, she doesn't strike me as someone who sits and, you know, I feel like she's outrunning her feelings probably as much as he is. The problem is they back up on her, maybe because she's got less distractions than he does. So I think they back up on her a little bit more easily, but in private, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but maybe there's something to be said about that line at the end. While it's probably not the perfect thing for her to say about him in the moment to satisfy us as far as his arc, and maybe it's kind of the perfect thing for her to say about him is like, oh, there's still work to be done here. She still needs to see him. She might still be idealizing him. I don't know, you know.
Well,
And yeah, you go
I
ahead.
like that the movie. It almost sounds like the movie's idealizing him,
Yeah,
but at least within the relationship, I'm glad that it doesn't because I'm really, 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 and I'm using the word satisfied, and I mean it. I'm so satisfied that at the end of the show, he doesn't kiss the girl. He doesn't go to the
no.
bar and get the girl.
he, he doesn't
Like
run to the airport.
he doesn't, yeah, because as far as this movie following a sort of rom com structure, he does
Yep.
run to the airport. He runs to the airport for his daughter.
Yes.
Um, However, they don't do the thing where just like, oh, and now this is resolved. She saw what a great dude he is, and then they kiss. They don't. He just kind
Yeah.
of basically asks her, please stick around with me.
Yes.
And you want to talk about how much you like the embraces. I love, before we even get to Gertie, the fact that
Mhm.
the two of them embrace and we kind of stay on them.
Yeah.
And it's fucking great.
It's an incredibly honest moment
Mm-hmm.
between the two of them. Like I was already welling up at that point because I was
Yeah.
like, good. Something's
Especially,
happening that feels, you know, like you're
yes.
authentically being yourselves with each other and not just kind of like trading quips. Because there was something kind of 1940s screwball comedy about the way they trade, you know, here's
Uh
Girl
huh.
Friday about because at one point doesn't he even say like you got some nerve, lady, or something like
Yeah.
that. And I'm like,
Well, it's one of my favorite parts of the movie. She's like, well, I was going to give you a mercy jump. And he's like, mercy jump? Stay away from my kid.
yes. And I think she even laughs at that
Yeah.
too. And I'm like, boom, yay, fun
And
stuff.
I mean, and I know they both have their talents. And I wonder how much of it also is just, we really like got along on Armageddon and we're bringing that to this. Like we have
Yeah.
a comfortability. But what that does is it makes, again, for characters who clearly have a little spark, but they're keeping it not professional, but like we're friends and there's clearly an interest.
Yeah.
But we're not really. I mean, I know they try to give him a mercy jump, but they don't go on dates and they don't
No.
declare profound things. If anything, she rather unconvincingly keeps saying, "Hey, just friends," right?
Yeah.
Um, so to end on to have the journey just naturally end with just sort of being honest about where they kind of want to go and just the hug
Mhm.
and it not copping to just some dumb kiss at the end. I fucking love
No.
it.
And
And
also yeah, having the wisdom, like you already mentioned, to kind of step aside and have her step aside and realize the love story is not here.
no,
But I also really appreciate that it can be a love interest, but it doesn't mean you found like the love of your life or the one or anything like that. It's just like, okay, I got somebody who I can see where it
yeah.
goes from here. And
For the
yeah,
last
I
7 years, I
appreciate that
haven't been
too.
looking.
Yeah. Oh God, seven
Um,
years.
but I love that. I love
It's
that you were talking about their sort of banter because one of my favorite
yeah.
scenes is that scene in the video store, um, because of not just it's. I've been there and I've especially I mean it's more of a to me a young man's thing, but like
Mm.
when you just sort of like someone and you go visit them at their work and you get to talk to them for a few minutes and then blah 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 blah
Yeah,
and
God.
I'm watching him and I'm watching her and it's yeah they keep saying we're just friends but you could tell like he wants to be at that counter he wants to hear what she has to say next he wants to make her laugh she wants to like bust his balls make him laugh like I could have watched so many more scenes of that, and I absolutely know what you two were doing in this scene, and I
Mm-hmm.
buy it and I love it,
Me too.
and it feels real. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so yay, I like Maya. Oh,
Uh,
the other thing about Liv
yes.
Tyler and Maya,
Yes.
when and again, it's awfully ballsy him to have arranged an interview and already being like, well, I'm going back to the city and I'm leaving and all this stuff. Like, yo,
Yeah.
you haven't even had the interview yet. But the fact that they're talking outside the video store and
Yeah.
she's kind of saying, her goodbyes. And he's like, well, I'll still be visiting in the city. And she's like, yeah, yeah. But, the way she is leaving that scene,
Yeah.
and then Ollie's like, hey, Maya. Like, and she's like, no, no, I have seen that. And I have also been that where she's saying, hey, it's cool. Don't worry about it. We're just friends. We're nothing, right? It's not like
Oh
there's some great romance
God.
here. I'll see you later. No, no, it's cool. I'm like, oh my God, you're so full of shit right now. Like you are lying through your teeth.
Yeah.
And she's doing a good job of playing that, trying to play it cool.
Mm-hmm.
Here's how good it is. It's so good that you didn't need to show her crying in the video porn section, because I immediately know when you get out of range of him, I already know that that's what's next.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's a fault of the movie. I'm just saying that's how good she played it.
Oh, absolutely. No, I don't think it's the fault. I like that moment.
So when
But
she goes into
yeah,
the porn section, I'm already like, oh, here it is.
here it is.
Because
Of course. Of course.
yeah,
But I
of
love doing
course.
that too. I love raising my hands and just going like, and there it is. There's
Yeah.
what's really going on. And I love knowing it beforehand, like the payoff. Yeah. Also
Yeah.
have to say, I think that this is one case where, again, one simple detail about her, and maybe this, I feel this more now that I'm 44 than how old was I when this first came out? 20, God, I was fucking 24. But anyway, it's been 20 years.
No.
Okay. Didn't sometimes I don't do the math and I just fuck me. Okay, so that said, everything that just happened right now is why the detail works for me. And I'm really glad that he gave it to us because it fills in so many blanks for me in terms of what we're talking about with Maya. We know she's 26.
Mm-hmm.
All I have to do is think about myself when I was 26. How fucked up was I at like disclosing what was going on with me in whatever relationship or quasi relationship or potential relationship? Like, how many times did I shift and duck and weave and attempt to cover, whatever was really going on with me so I wouldn't scare him away, And I didn't even have him, but and I didn't even know what we were going to have, but it was like, whatever this is, I just want it to exist. I don't want it to go away. I want the promise of whatever we're going to be there. And oh
And
God,
you
breaks my heart.
don't want to miss a thing.
You had to. You had to do that. Who did I just find out that was about Barbara Streisand? I never knew that song. Steven Tyler, I guess. I don't know if he had a conversation directly with James Brolin
Wow, really?
or if he read an article, but literally there was one night, I guess Barbara Streisand was talking about it in an article, or he was, where they were in bed together and he came over and I guess they fell asleep together and she had to get up and he was like, no, I don't want you to leave. And she's like, but I have to. What do you want? He's like, because I'll miss you. I don't want to miss a thing. Like I don't want to miss a thing that you do. And Steven Tyler either read that or heard that story and was like, I got my song. And now 20 years later, you make a joke. But I just found that out recently, and I was watching
Yeah.
that Barbara interview, and I was like, "What the fuck?" I think it was Howard Stern. Howard Stern asked her about it. He knew about it somehow. Yeah.
Unrelated to Jersey Girl or anything, but I just recently found out, and I don't know if this is true. This is allegedly Who Let the Dogs Out
Oh God.
is not
Yeah.
about animals. Do you know about this?
I think I do. I have a vague memory. Keep talking.
It's
Maybe
it's
it'll come back
about
to
it's
me.
about when the bar or club lights turn on,
Oh, right.
and
Yeah.
woof,
Yes.
who let
Woof.
the
Woof.
dogs
Woof.
out?
Who let the dogs out? Wow.
Who knows? Because they use it in so many like pet food commercials, and apparently it's you know,
Or even just dog content. Wasn't it in like
yeah,
Rugrats in Paris or something where they were
I don't,
chasing a
yeah,
dog?
I'm
Like,
sure,
yeah,
yeah, whatever.
yeah, animal. It cornered the market. Write a good, not even a good, but a catchy song about animals, and you'll make the
Yeah.
commercial circuit, make your money that way. I should make my
Um,
millions that way.
oh yeah,
Never composed anything, but I'm gonna start now.
when we were talking about Maya in the video store, you're right about the
Mm.
VHS thing. In fact, one of the things I couldn't help thinking, and I didn't think about this in 2004 when I was watching it now, but I just thought like, again, this is something that cements the movie in a certain place in time. Is like this is the last breath of the VHS
Yeah,
video store and
yeah.
the VHS porn section. Because one
Hmm.
of the cool things is that there was let's see, all through like the 2010s
Hmm.
up until like I want to say like 2018, 2017, there was two video stores in Orange County. So here's the thing. It was all VHS, and then there was this period where the video stores had VHS, maybe like 60%, and then like 40% was like the DVD walls
Yeah.
for new releases. But then eventually they became DVD video stores. And then there was a couple that I went to because I still rented physical media all through the 2010s.
Hmm.
Besides Redbox, I would go into one of the last video stores in Orange County um,
Hmm.
that had like this double like Blu-ray wall. So that like, hey, for
Hmm.
$1.50 you can rent a DVD, but for $2.50 you can rent a Blu-ray. And
Hmm.
then that Blu-ray wall started to basically all the new releases were Blu-rays, and all the catalog titles were VHS. So there's always these little periods of transition. But in 2004, like obviously DVD started to boom in like 99 and then just grew bigger and bigger and bigger. So
Hmm.
I get where there would be both. But I feel like the fact that this store only rents VHS 2004 is like, wow, you're the last of one of the few like this is bad for business. And if anything,
Hmm.
this is probably an indication of why Ollie doesn't like Jersey. He's like, the video store only rents VHS.
You know what? Feather in my cap. I'm going to carry that from now on.
Right?
Okay. Thank
Headcanon.
you.
Because even
um,
even the DVD video stores still had the porn in the back. It was just DVD through because at least the one that I went to, they had the saloon doors
yeah.
that led to a porn section. It was just all DVD instead of, and that's the other interesting thing is that like internet existed in 2004 to the degree that like most people had a home computer
Yeah.
and would do emails and daily life and get their news and all that, and also get their porn. It's not to the degree now where like at any time of day you want, you can see nudity and fucking on this little thing wherever you need to go.
Yeah.
Uh, at home, there was still this transition period where like, oh no, I live at home with my father, and I don't know if he has a home computer. So like, yeah, I have to go to the video store and actually rent my porn the way people had to rent their porn in the 80s and 90s and stuff.
And of
If you
course,
if you
true to
didn't own
form,
it,
and true to form, he's real. He should have just owned it. 7 years. Come on, buddy. Build up a stash. But anyway, he has
yeah.
in appropriately stuffy fashion, he kind of meanders over
Oh yeah. After
does the thing. I mean, that is gone. Like that kind of shame is, I mean, for better
well, his
and
kid's
worse.
there.
His kid is there, but I have a feeling he would have been doing the same thing even if his kid
Again,
wasn't.
he's a little conservative in his
Yeah,
sexual.
yeah.
Yeah.
That just felt very Ollie to me. I was just kind of like, Ollie, just go through the beaded curtain. If daughter has
Um,
a question, just say it's a special story that only daddies can watch.
I think he doesn't even want to go there though. That's the truth of it.
Probably,
Yeah.
probably.
Now, but building up your own collection though, I have to wonder though. Like, no, I live with my daughter. It's like I don't want her to find.
She goes to school.
Still, the shame. He has the shame. He has
He has
the
the shame.
yeah.
He's got a lot of issues
A
going
lot
on.
of Kevin Smith's characters are also like Catholic men, so they've got the shame.
Mhm. That's true. Hey, I was Catholic once,
Yeah.
but I shed that, so
I
now
don't have the shame
shame
because I'm
means
no longer Catholic. Yeah.
shame means something completely different to me now. Like it means like kind of like a social
It's
trip
like
up in a way where it's like, okay, you shouldn't have said that like in front of that person. But anyway,
it's just the kind of thing that I don't think he would want Gertie to stumble on in a.
yeah,
Because and also haha because when he's canoodling with Maya,
yeah,
he's supposed to be at work and she comes home, so like
yeah,
she's at
that's
home when
true.
he's not.
Okay. There's still got to be a way. A man would find a way. But
Oh yeah.
but
He'd put it on a shelf that she can't reach. But then one day she'll get a chair and go, "What's Daddy got?" But she's
you
so
brought up
young. She's so
yeah.
young. Like again, they're doing like the playing doctor showings. Like she's
Okay.
pretty young. Yeah.
Okay. And I'm really glad you brought that up because this is the thing. You made me think about two things, and this is one of them. One of the things I do think about when I think about this movie that I had forgotten this was the way in was when they're doing like it's not even doctor, it's like show and tell
It's
of
showing. Yeah.
their privates with each other. I was that was a part the lead in I'd forgotten, so I was just kind of like, where is this going? I don't remember this happening. And then when he walked in, I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, I know what's coming. I remember really liking this. I loved the parallel, the
The
fact that like
parallel's great.
yeah.
I love it.
Well, because first of all, the bit, even if it didn't pay off later, is funny enough just having him sitting. It feels so fatherly. It's again, it's one of those things that like it's highly theatrical and funny and ripe for a comedy, but fathers behave this way when it comes to particularly their daughters.
Mm-hmm.
There's this protective nature where he's willing to sit across from this 7-year-old boy and ask him straight faced, "What are your intentions with my daughter?" I'm like, dude, and the kid's just like, what?
My
He doesn't even know he
intentions.
should,
Yeah.
yeah, he doesn't even know that he should be scared. I love
Right.
this.
He doesn't know what he did.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So he starts posing marriage to them and everything like that, which oh god, that feels very Catholic. And then um, but then yeah, the payoff later when number one, just that she catches them. And I remember the first time I saw the movie, I didn't know that wait, I can't remember. Was the parallel spoiled in the trailer?
I don't remember.
I can't either. I feel like
I think it might. Yeah, because
I
I
think it might have
remember her
been.
saying, "What are your intentions?" And his face.
Right. I feel
Yeah.
like okay, then that's a shame that it was spoiled because I think one thing I knew it was coming, but one thing that I was kind of like wondering that might come up later is like how well because seeing the trailer even like just thinking like how well does she know Liv Tyler's character at that juncture? Like is it like a Kramer versus Kramer thing where the kid's meeting Jo Beth Williams, Dustin Hoffman's secretary for the first time completely naked and that's his only exposure to her? Or does she have like a relationship with her and she's kind of like, cool, like I want, or is she gonna be like, oh, no one's gonna take the place of my mama? Just speculating where is this gonna go? And where it went was kind of like just a similar place it went with her father. Just like, let's deal with this. Let's have a somewhat frank conversation, and then we'll move on. but but yeah, I appreciated the comedy of that. It's something that I associate with this as far as like the movie's successes. And I have to say, the other thing you made me think about while you were talking about uh like the New Jersey of it all in the video store and everything. I say I'm so glad that we get to unpack this together because I'm starting to think there was something planted in really early in the movie that I had forgotten about until just now. It's in the narration where, or is it well, she's reading the report.
Yeah.
And she's saying, like, my daddy always said there's like, what would she say? There's two life categories, New York and New Jersey. Now, we never really kind of follow up with that and get it spelled out for us. I feel like it is left for us to kind of pick up through his behavior and the way he treats Manhattan and as something to aspire to, and the way he treats New Jersey as something to be embraced and comforted by, at best.
Right.
But even then, though, I remember thinking like, okay, go on, because to this day, I still have yet to cross the bridge and go to New Jersey. I've looked fondly at it
Have you
from
never been?
Manhattan. I've never been, even when I lived out there. I was too busy being depressed, as a lot of New Yorkers are. Like we're too in our own fog, but navigating through it, taking subway stops to it, and whatever. But no, but I've gazed lovingly at it from the shore from the what is it the West Shore, yeah, and but yeah, still have never been. So I don't know how varied the experience can be in New Jersey, but lived in Manhattan, been there many times. Still am discovering pockets of the city I never saw even when I lived there. And so Manhattan to me equals nothing definitive, like so I was just kind of interested in
Right.
what his Manhattan is, and I think his Manhattan is everything that he aspires to. It's that life that he's pounding his chest and defending in that horrible interaction with
Yeah.
his daughter.
There is
Yeah.
no. there is no one Manhattan, so I don't think
Yeah.
clearly. I think he's aspiring to a sort of Carrie Bradshaw sort of
Ugh.
like I don't see him hanging out in the East Village. You
No.
know,
I...
I don't see him going to the Apollo. Like there's very specific areas of Manhattan that are his Manhattan.
I'm trying to
Um,
discern even is he I guess he would be Upper West Side because he's not Upper East Side. He was never that
no,
wealthy. Huh. Yeah, I can't nail down which Manhattan. Maybe it's probably a Manhattan I don't want to. That's probably more deeply connected to like Wall Street and again, I guess, the
yeah,
more
no, it's like
yeah.
he would have loved like Fifth Avenue, like Mad Men era. Like he would have been so happy.
Oh God. He would have been.
He would
That's
have.
terrifying. Oh my God.
But I'm glad by the end of the movie he's not. But he definitely
Yeah. But if he grew up in that era, he would have thrived on
his
his
little
his priorities, his
yeah,
fucked up priorities in that period. Oh my God, just been
and
like, raise the kid.
right, and Don Draper is definitely like he's by by the act he is a father, but Don Draper is not a father, and I
Yeah.
feel like in that era, like he would not have been a father to Gertie,
No, not at
and thankfully
all.
he's in this era, but yeah, there's a version of Ollie that would have existed in the Oliver Stone Wall Street or Mad Men, and it could have been so much uglier.
Yeah. Uh,
Um,
you
can we
got something
pivot?
else?
Can we
Pivot,
pivot?
pivot.
Let's pivot to because I said this earlier. Carlin.
Yes.
To me, Carlin
Yes.
is the movie, and
Yeah.
as much as I don't want to say I look forward to it because it hurts, but it's one of the biggest moments of the movie, and I know it's coming is the fight between Ollie and Gertie. But it's even more than the fight. What I'm always looking forward to is that beat right after where Carlin looks at me and he goes, "What's the matter with you?"
Yeah.
The most perfect delivery of just, "What the hell's the matter with you?" Fucking so like it gets me every time.
He's our common
And
sense, not even just
and
the movie, but our collective common sense as a consciousness, as a
yep,
people. He's that. He's the Jiminy Cricket of the movie.
and the fact that when they don't show what happens on the other side of the door, but when that door closes, I can see him walking to her and sitting
Yeah.
next to her on the bed and giving
Yeah.
her a hug and then trying to
Yeah.
explain like,
Hmm.
and it all comes from him. There are other actors where if they weren't that in tune to the part, I couldn't see what you're doing as you exit the stage, but I can see what he's doing when he exits the stage.
Hmm. Yeah, the reality of that house and the reality of his life that he's moving in. I feel like again, like there's wonderful seeds planted in details that just kind of only an old man is gonna like tell you to like, don't scrub that pan because I got the juice just the way I want it so I can drag my
Right.
and then having it explained like, like it's not juice, it's grease. It feels like such an old man move,
Oh
like
yeah, and I like the movie. The movie has fun with it, but it never milks it to some nth degree where it's
no.
all of a sudden a comedic bit. That's the one thing I like about this movie too is that it finds the pockets for humor without like milking it to like some comedic
No.
excess.
No.
But I do.
We laugh with recognition and with
Yeah,
familiarity, never with that's funny. Like as far as with regards to Carlin in particular, yeah.
I'll tell you. When I was younger, I used to laugh pretty hard at the line where Affleck's like, "Oh, it's cute. At 8 p.m., you both get a bottle."
Hmm.
And it's still a funny line, but now as I'm older, I'm like, "Shut the fuck up and be a father. Quit your fucking jokes. Go be a dad. Fuck you." It's a
I
good line, but
feel
now is not the time.
yeah. I also I loved when I wrote Bart his line when he's changing little Gert and he's just like he says something like grandpa loves you until you're a teenager with the boys in the reefer then I don't want to know about you.
Yeah,
I'm like yes, yes, this
yeah,
is gold.
and it's
This
that,
is
and that's a
absolute
alone
gold.
time talk too. Where whether you're with a kid or with a dog or a cat, where it's like,
Hmm.
yeah, he played also oldest comedy gag in the book. and he still makes it work, which is we change a diaper and you go, "Ugh."
Yeah, right.
But there's a truth to the way, like, everything in his face is also
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, yeah, that's a sticky turd. Yeah,
As
I
long as
love it.
there's reality in the comedy that you're doing, it can be like the most well-worn of premises or even the most well-worn of punchlines. But if you're connected to it and you believe it, an audience is going to go right there with you.
Absolutely.
And somebody like George Carlin is going to understand that. But the thing that also like got me and gets me, I already mentioned like it made me cry, but there's something about the because you hear talking about like him going through the bedroom door to Gert and what's going to follow and everything like that. Everything about that character is like that to me. I feel like I know who he is on sight and I don't feel like I'm ever wrong the whole movie. And one of the other things is that emotional moment at the end where he's just like, um, you just don't want to live alone. He's like, not so much as I don't want to die alone.
Oh, it kills me.
Okay, the weight of it. And it's not played with weight. There's just a reality to it. He accessed something and shared something in deeply personal that, we'll never know exactly how or what, but it's undeniable that like if you're sitting in a room with that energy, you're going to be really, really still and you're just going to take it in and then you're going to try to get him back into the world of the living, which is basically what his son does. And I love the fact that the second he walks over, Ollie, to go get
Hmm.
Gert and tell her like Grandpa's kind of, depressed that he didn't get to go on. She's like, "Aw." So he's like, "Why don't you go cheer him up?" And I'm just kind of like, "That's perfect. Send his granddaughter, because
Yeah.
if anyone's gonna pull him out of this, because that's the atmosphere right now. Don't be alone, like in the shadows, like at this. We're celebrating right now, but the only one who can do it without feeling like, come on, old man, forget your troubles, like there's a party going on. No, your granddaughter runs up to you. You're gonna be like, "Hey, princess," and he
And
does,
he
and it
he
just
shifts into that. Hey, like he,
and of course he is. And of
yeah,
course he does, because
yeah.
that's who she is and that's the impact she has on him. That's who he wants to be for her.
Hmm.
Because again, that thing that you talk about in terms of raising children, there's something intuitively that he understands. He's got his priorities in order and he knows like, I can't be like this around the kid, And also
Yeah, yeah.
there is and then there is something to celebrate. So let's have, let's what's the word I'm looking for? Re-emerge into the world of the living there. But I love that all of it exists. Everything about the way that goes through. I think it's only going to cut deeper with age. I remember feeling it 20 years ago.
Hmm.
I was a mess. I was an absolute mess and continued to be. It just spiraled because then we go to Maya and like I said, like I didn't really catch the the lines. You're right. Well, and she's saying, well, is he? Is he one of the good ones or whatever? I didn't even think about it because I'm too busy going, everyone feels so nice. Everyone's where they should be right now. That's good. Like, um, so yeah, just wanted to bring that up. You made me think about that.
I often, this time in particular really hit me like a ton of bricks.
Yeah.
Um, I think this is the second time I've seen it since George Carlin's passed.
Mm,
So that line always gets me. But the reason it always got me before too was uh, I know at this point in his life, his wife had already died.
yeah.
So when he says not as much as dying alone, I always
Yeah.
can't help but wonder like how much of that line is really just Carlin or versus the character, or how much is he infusing the character. But like it just always gets me because I don't know how much you know about his career, but like I mean it's stupid to say well his wife was really important to him, but like if you look at his stand-up comedy before
Hmm.
his wife died to after his wife died, all the
Yeah.
material after his wife died is death, life. This one of the sets for one of his shows is just a graveyard.
Yeah.
The material definitely skews afterwards. So I bring all that every time I see him say that line. I just go, oof.
The man had it on his mind. But I think Lost does that too. Like
Sure.
I didn't think about, I mean, because how can you really think about death before you experience it? Like even if it's indirectly, but you're connected to somebody who is a very vital part of your life. and you lose them. And you don't, but
Yeah.
you don't, but you do. Like you can't hear their voice in real time anymore and stuff like that. You
Yeah.
can't feel them hugging you back, stuff like that. Um, I I don't know that I had a firm grasp of what death was until I lost my own father, but I remember that was the one where I was just kind of like, oh, okay.
Hmm.
Temporary. This is all very temporary. Okay, I get it. I feel like, all of a sudden you just kind of like feel like, okay, so it could happen to anybody. It really could, like at any time. Don't have to run around being afraid of that because ironically, that'll ruin your life. But if you always kind of have it in the back of your mind, it can help. It can be a friend. It can be like hey, that thing that you're scared to do, you don't know where you're going to be, like, in a year, 10 years, whatever. Why don't you go do it? Ooh, okay. You know,
Hmm.
kindly, just as long as you treat it with kindness towards yourself. Um, that said, there are some emotional moments that are played for comedy in this movie that I think work uh, equally as well. I think I Want to Be a Coked Out Whore is
Oh,
probably the best thing I've ever heard Jennifer Lopez say.
that scene in particular. Well, because even before that, it's when they're talking in the mirror, and
Yeah.
it's a cliche, but it's a cliche because it happens all the
Oh,
time. Not
yeah.
all the time, but it happens to many, many,
No,
many
it
men. Which
happens.
is,
It happens.
look what time it is. How have you been home all day? She's like, well, fuck you. If you want to carry this baby and blah, blah,
Mm-hmm,
blah, blah, blah.
mm-hmm,
And neither of us
mm-hmm,
is fucking listening. We're just venting our bullshit. But then
mm-hmm.
he says the wrong thing and now she's leaving. But that's played beautifully. But I want to be a coked out whore. Like, cause it's already funny. It's like, look, they're just coked out whores. I want to be a coked. Oh, it's so like
She's
she's
already
marvelous.
crying.
She's
Yes, it's
marvelous in
wonderful.
that
It was
scene.
so good. It was so good. And
My favorite J Lo is still and will always be Out of Sight. But I
mm,
think my second favorite might be that scene in Jersey Girl. She's perfect, note perfect.
yeah, I agree. Because also the thing that follows, again, we go back to authenticity. I like if anyone's been in a committed monogamous relationship, or maybe not even a monogamous, maybe you've got a polyamorous, whatever. But when you are committed to people and you've got time is not on your side and you're not in the same place and you start to have the fight, sometimes you do kind of just have to get the emotion out so you can kind of like get it out, shake it off, be you again, remind each other we're on the same team. I love you so much. I love you too. Okay, so are we gonna go to this thing, or we don't have to go? No, well, let's go. Okay, and then you go and you're fine. You know,
I hope.
No,
Fuck.
yeah, hopefully.
Dude. You know
Yeah,
what
I've
sucks
had both
is when you
experiences.
go to the thing and you're not fine.
I've had
Holy
both
shit.
experiences. I've had the
Yeah.
experience where you go and your stomach is knotted like a fist and you're you're gritting through your smile. But I've also had the thing where you're just like, God, I can't believe we were like screaming at each other just 30 minutes ago. And now look at us. Here we are
Mhm.
clinking glasses and making jokes. This is insane. Life is so fucked up.
That's the better way to go.
That is, if you can opt for that,
And I
but
like to
you
think
can't.
that that's what they do in that scene,
Yeah,
in the
absolutely. I'd
moment
like to I'd
after.
like to think so too.
But yeah,
Yeah.
you're right, because that scene is funny because she has to be playing it not funny in order for it to be
Yeah.
funny, and she does, and because of it, she's great and hilarious in it.
Yeah.
In fact, I really love her in her 10 minutes of screen time.
Yeah.
There is a certain level that could be played as schmaltz, but she and Ben make it when the doctor walks in and just sort of explains that you're pregnant. She does this giddy like hop and the grin, and normally that thing might make me want to puke, but I buy it with her, and I think it's adorable for the two of them. And
Me too.
yeah.
Yeah. And there's another emotional moment that's played for comedy that it was like 3:30 and or so, and I burst out full throat laughing, and it was after Ollie has his press conference from hell,
Mhm.
and he's packing up his things, and Jason Biggs, Arthur, is just sitting there going, and he's just silently putting things in a box, I think, or something. It's just like and it's all over. And oh my God, it worked. It worked for me so well. I was just kind of like, again, that was absolute comedy. Like, there may have not been a tear streaming down Jason Biggs' face, but something about the theatricality of it just worked for me. I appreciated it. And as we were dollying out, like that was another thing I noticed. Like there were a few moments I got into the movie too much at a certain point to notice the technical things, but I think the first thing I did notice was I think it was at the Lamaze class that Ollie was late for. And we're just wide pan, wide pan, wide pan. And I just had a thought.
Mhm.
People say Kevin Smith never moves the camera. Look at this.
Oh yeah.
We're going across like like this is like the London Bridge here. We're going across and landing on JLo and pulling in on her, and Ollie comes in late, and then they have the exchange, the
Well,
aforementioned exchange.
I'm
Yeah.
glad I'm glad you brought that up because for my money, this is, and I like plenty of other movies, but if we're just going on visual aesthetics, this is the best looking Kevin Smith film for
Yeah.
my money.
Yeah.
And Vilmos Sigmund is one of the most famous cinematographers on the planet. And I remember at the time when, like, because again, I used to read the View Askew and News Askew boards like daily. I
Mm-hmm.
remember when I'm like, holy fuck, you have the Academy Award winning fucking cinematographer of fucking Close Encounters of the Third Kind shooting a
Mm-hmm.
Kevin Smith movie. What a get. What an interesting, and not in a bad way, but like, because you see DPs doing all sorts of interesting mid-tier, and upper tier projects, but for such a modest story,
Mm-hmm.
he brings, especially to the city. I love the way he shoots New York in this movie. The brief times we do get to see, just bust. But yeah, compared to I don't fucking Clerks. No offense to everyone else, but it is a not like an anomaly, but like, because I don't want Red State to look like this.
No.
I don't want Clerks 2 to look like this.
No.
But I do. But I am fascinated by just for a guy here who used to be criticized for not moving the camera.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck you. I'm getting the DP of the Deer Hunter, and he's gonna shoot my movie, motherfuckers, and we're gonna move the camera.
Right.
We're gonna move that shit.
There's also like because that's the thing. I wonder if like maybe the more overt sentimentality of certain moments might have turned some of his usual suspects off. Because I remember even talking to people who were huge fans when I was living in New York. I remember talking to people with who were around my age at the time, which was like 18, who were huge fans of Clerks and Mallrats, who didn't like Chasing Amy because they thought like he tried to be all, just like, and I'm like, real? Like, I mean, not to put down Clerks or Mallrats, but like, it's like, yeah, no, he was just trying to like, message me or something. And I'm like, oh my God, I heard that from like a handful of people where I'm just kind of like, oh, I don't want to think, and I'm like, well, good for you,
Well,
because
and if
fight that
if
good fight, buddy.
I maybe it's just because I'm a sucker and a stan, but there has yet to be a Kevin Smith movie I don't like. I like the full spectrum and gamut of it all. But yeah,
Yeah.
if you're just here for snoochie boochies and dick and fart jokes, this may not be your cup of tea. But it's not this movie's agenda, and it
No,
just may
and
not be.
feel like there's enough there though. Like, I mean, right off the bat, like it had been a minute since I kind of felt like I was watching a Kevin Smith movie, and then all of a sudden, Rick Darris is there, like in the crowd,
Mm-hmm.
just going like, what were they chanting? Oh, we want enough
Fresh
with the
Prince.
romper room, man. We want the Fresh Prince, and they all start chanting, and I was
Uh
just kind of
huh.
like, oh, I'm Chuli's gum and just
Yeah.
pelting.
Well, and then Jason Lee and Matt Damon show up.
Right.
And then
Yeah.
at the when the city council is doing their meeting,
Yeah.
Coey London's the one that's like, bullshit,
Yes. Yes.
bullshit.
I know Alyssa Jones. Yeah.
Yeah, like, hey, let's get one of the most Jersey-ish actors in these movies to yell out the most Jersey
So
bullshit you've
good.
heard in a while. Yeah.
And also even just like in like the bit that I'm the aforementioned bit that I love with the parallel with the, so what are your intentions of it all? I love that I feel like Kevin Smith goes into a direction not many screenwriters would have gone to between a father and a daughter, where she asks him, do you have what he has? And he's like, yes, I do. And she's like, and is yours as big as his? And he goes, sadly, yes. Like, that was good. That
There,
was really good.
yeah, it may not scratch the Mallrats itch if that's what you want, but to me,
Right, right.
it's because okay, I remember there was some criticism at like Kevin Smith was responding like some critic who was saying some of the effect of like, really, like after all these movies, you're doing this like formula, this sort of
Mhm.
family comedy slash running to the airport sort of thing. Like
Yeah.
we've seen this before, and I think Kevin Smith said something to the effect of, "Yeah, but you haven't seen my version of it."
Yeah.
And like he knows the story has been told,
Hmm.
but like you're saying, there's all these Smithisms through it that
Hmm.
make it his. The fact that he even wrote a girl who's like, "Well, I'm writing this thesis about guys who don't fuck and jerk off, and I'm gonna take you to a diner. We're gonna talk about masturbation." Like,
Exactly.
it's yeah, the little girls that we're doing fun little like pee pee jokes, with the like, it's still it's his version of this, and I think it works.
Also, I mean,
It's,
there is that case to be made that like the director makes the same movie over and over and over again, no matter how hard they try to change it. Ultimately, they're always telling like if you can epitomize it, like a one sentence can epitomize like any one of the stories, like that they're telling the same story. But most directors are not interested in literally making the same movie
mhm,
over and over and over again. And if they are, oh my God, I pray for their souls because that's not going to fulfill you. I mean, maybe it'll fill your bank account, and maybe that's all you need. And I guess good on you, but do you really need to be a director for that? Why don't you try something else that, doesn't have such
yeah.
potential, as a means of like communicating and connecting with people and stuff like that, or even making them feel a little bit better, like on their day or a little bit more
Yeah.
seen. But
Well,
yeah,
it's kind
go
of
ahead.
foretold, in the previous movie, Jane and Silent Bob Strike Back, when
Yeah,
Holden's looking at Silent Bob, going, "Don't you want something more? Like, than just
yeah,
I don't want to write just the same fucking dick and fart jokes." And
yeah,
and
yeah.
then sure enough, like the Silent Bob did do tell something different and not the same dick and fart jokes. And yet, what's funny is in telling this sweet story, there's still a dick joke,
Hmm.
and we still have two scenes where we're changing diapers, going, "Pu," like there's still some dick and fart jokes in there.
Yeah, and I mean, I remember in our clerks discussion, I drew a parallel between like Kevin Smith's casting and John Waters' casting in his, as a
Yes.
director and the way he handled, his friends when he was making his movies. And I think one thing that I admire about Kevin Smith that I also admire about John Waters, if you look at their filmographies, is that they didn't just make the same movie and over again. They got into like their wheelhouse and made a few films that, might have fit that, but then they started pushing their parameters in terms of like, like, well, I think I might want to appeal to more than just this to show people like in Kevin Smith's idea, idea like, okay, I can do more than just write about like, smoking and, reading comic books and talk, doing meta social commentary or whatever. And with John Waters, it was like, I can do more than just make the midnight movie that, only,
Yeah.
illicit adults are going to get into. I need to start appealing and maybe accidentally make a family film, like something that has a lower rating so I can reach the next generation. Otherwise, my films will die with with my generation, basically. I need to make something that's going to reach across, to other people who will then grow up and be curious about my other things and, watch them when they're age appropriate, maybe, unless they've got cool parents who show them, the cool shit when they're young.
But much like John Waters, these other movies are still undeniably of a
Them.
certain flavor.
Yes.
So that even like you're saying, maybe I want to get away from characters who speak comic book talk. But
Yeah.
sure enough, though, Ollie knows enough that we're calling this the Batmobile.
Yeah.
He's raised his daughter to watch Star Wars enough that she says, "Punch it, Chewie." Like,
Yeah. It's all there.
well, I mean, he's named Ollie because Kevin a few years earlier had brought Green Arrow back to DC. Like, that's why he named him Ollie in this movie.
Oh, I didn't
Um,
know that. Or I
yeah,
forgot that. Oh. So
we
he's Green Arrow, huh?
yeah.
Interesting.
Although by that point he'd already been Daredevil.
Right.
Like I think
But
just the year before,
had not yet been Batman,
but not yet
ironically.
had been Batman.
Gotham City. But
Wow. We haven't talked much directly about the Jersey Girl. We've cited her in
yeah,
some scenes, but like
yeah,
one of the things, it's one thing to have screen presence and to have good timing,
yeah.
but it's you mentioned this before. It's the scene where after they've had the fight and he's apologizing to her. To me, that's a hard sell, and she sells it when she, as a 7-year old, is forgiving her father.
God.
it almost breaks my heart to see a kid of that age have to do that to him, but also the understanding. And because I see this a lot in movies, and even because sometimes, even though I don't fucking believe in astrology, but I get that there are certain things that Scorpio is that I
Okay.
am.
Okay.
And one of them is the way I hold grudges. And there'll be a
Okay.
scene in a movie or a show where a person is getting so frustrated in the moment that they say a horrible thing.
Hmm.
And and I remember sitting with Tracy. I won't say what thing it was because you may watch it someday. But I'm like,
Sure.
man, if I were her, like, fuck, that'd be the end. And she's
Hmm.
like, no, but if I were her, I'd understand that, like, he probably didn't mean it. Sometimes when you're that angry, the thing that you say is either something you mean or not in the attention. And I've seen that more than once where I'm like, oh, you're better than me. It's like, I don't, but and this is a great example of, like, in his heart, in the last 7 years after, his first turnaround, I don't think he looks
Hmm.
at Gertie every day and just goes, I fucking hate you, little shit.
No.
This is in the heat of the moment where you get pushed to a thing and you say the wrong thing. And the fact that when he sits down and tells her, daddy didn't mean it, like, she
Hmm.
understands. That's a pretty wise thing for a 7-year-old to understand if she hasn't already understood that, I
Hmm.
also, when I say I hate you and I wish you were dead, I don't hate you and wish you were dead. So I get it. And she plays all that.
Yeah.
Two complete ends of a spectrum beautifully.
Yeah.
Fantastic kid.
Yeah. Also, I know we're talking about Gertie, but you just made me think about another thing that why that moment works for me as far as Ollie's perspective is because I'm so not in his shoes for so much of this movie, but suddenly you put someone in a position where a child who's usually awesome, is now yelling and
Mm.
evading and saying, cruel, I won't say cruel things, but just saying things that you're just like, hey, we
Mm-hmm.
don't talk like, you don't talk to me like that and everything. And it just makes me think, I'm not even a parent, but I know, and I think I even knew 20 years ago, because I had parents, and I remember sometimes they would say things that would make them sound like idiots. As I grew older, I started to think like, really, we're still doing this? Like, because I'm your
Mm.
father, like whatever. But it's because you will never be in a more precarious position, I think, to argue with someone than with a child, like a insolent, child who is not going to listen to what you say. They're not going to do what you tell them. And you can't control them. So you have to start like kind of leaning on not even cliches, but just leaning on these phrases you have to reach for, like because I'm your father. That's the reason why. Like I would have said the exact same thing in that
Mm-hmm.
instance. I'm like every right up until his outburst, I wouldn't have done that. But when you're freaking out and you're just kind of like because I've done that when I'm teaching, where I'm just kind of like because I'm the teacher, and you have to say it, you have to believe it,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to mean it, and you have to make them kind of like okay, and then because you got to get the control back. So all of that is there in that scene as well, and it's probably it's weirdly enough, it's probably the most one of the moments where I identify with Ollie and even empathize with him the most. And but at the same time, like I get everything about where she's coming from because she's the id, like right then she is speaking without a filter. She does have the her roots being pulled up and she can like it's almost like he's literally wiping away the life that she knows and she has to fight for it and everything about the way what is this actress's name? I didn't even write it down. Here, let me look.
It's Raquel
Raquel
Castro.
Castro. So when oh my God, she's all grown up now. I'm looking at her on IMDb. Oh my God, it's been 20 years. Of course she's grown
Yeah.
up. Fucking A, man.
I think she, in the last year, did a screening at Smodcastle.
Oh
I know
really?
she's done appearances in the past. Yeah.
Oh, so cool. Oh my God. Love her. Love
Mm-hmm.
okay. If you're watching this or if anybody knows, just tell her we love her. She's awesome. And yeah, and I'm just gonna, yeah, completely agree with you in terms of just everything that she does makes that moment happen. And because I'm identifying with Ollie because of all the parental mode that has to go into to try and control the situation, and because of everything she's doing, everything that Kevin Smith has built into the character to make me root for her. When the explosion happens, there is so much that I am aligned with, that I feel it. And that's why I just burst into tears, because it shattered something. Because
Mm,
they're also in the greater arc of the movie, I've been told it's 7 years, but it's whatever the runtime of the movie is, when he is good dad up until that point. But I buy it that for 7 years he's been this decent guy, and he's showed up as a father. And to see him immediately realize what he's done. Because if he had doubled down on it or just kind of continued to be a jerk, the fact that he sees exactly what he does. I know that there are parents who have done that. I've spoken to
mm.
people who are just like, oh, and I mean, and on the reverse side of it, I know I've said things that have hurt both my parents, and I regret both of them. The things that I can think specifically of one instance with each of my parents where I'm like, I don't look back on life and think like, regret and I wish I could take that back. But if somebody came and had a wand and just said, I can erase, any moment with one of your parents individually, I would know exactly which ones. I'd be like, yeah, can I take those out? Thank you. Because I misspoke and it's bad. But
Yeah, I got one of those.
yeah. Oh
So
no. And so again, even though I can sit because I'm not a parent, I can sit and go like, I don't think I'd ever say that to a child. I don't think I'd ever say that to a child. Do I think I could do something that would immediately make me think, oh my God, I did irreparable harm to my child just by saying words,
right.
just by behaving like a madman, and being selfish and not listening and just getting caught up in the heat of the moment when I should know better than that. And I can see all of that in Ben Affleck's performance right then there too.
Yeah, and
So
he's lucky that he's got a daughter who's so understanding. Um,
dear God.
but yes, you're right.
So,
No, he plays the immediate regret
yeah,
perfectly.
yeah.
In
I don't see
fact,
how you can scream at a face like that and not.
yeah. Actually, one of my favorite scenes in the movie isn't. I mean, and again, he plays the regret perfectly. But one of my favorite scenes in the movie is just the two of them in Central Park walking on the bridge
Hmm.
because, and I love. It's one of my favorite things. I could see, I've mentioned this a lot in other Kevin Smith movie discussions, but it's one thing to have the charisma of like a Jason Lee and to deliver the lines.
Hmm.
You have to be a good listener too.
Mm.
Dante and Brody are both characters who visibly listen well.
Mm.
And the way he's talking to Gertie and the way she's asking questions and the way he's just like looking at her and choosing how to like he's really good listener and he's a really good partner in that scene. It's
Yeah.
probably my favorite Affleck scene. And it's not a big dramatic thing, but it's the way he's
Hmm.
explaining her, about her mom and like how this is a date. Like we're on a date now. Like all of
Hmm.
it. It's perfect.
Hmm. That's
And
every bit as crucial when you're acting in a film, moments like that, as the big,
mm-hmm.
emotionally, whether they're cathartic or destructive or whatever. When you're screaming and yelling and breaking the furniture, you probably feel like you're acting. But it's always about like I love scenes that are deceptively simple that I can watch. Somebody did some work here anyway. Like somebody personalized something. You could have just shot the scene. You probably could have just faked it, but there's something going on. There's a layer built into this relationship or this situation that is feeding me as a moviegoer, and it makes me grateful. I don't have a whole lot else to say. What about you?
I have a little bit, so
Okay, what do
we
you want to
tackle
say?
my little bits and then wrap
We'll
it up.
tackle your bits.
Yeah. Well, still speaking of Ben Affleck,
Yeah.
there's a little, and I love. Again, I don't want to be a parent, but I am always amused when I see my friends behaving as parents because there is a
Yeah.
behavior. And it's just another side of it. It's another truth. It's not artifice. It's just that you drinking and acting the ass and talking about movies, whatever, is one part of you, and then the way you engage with your kid is just a different part of you.
Yeah.
But I love that's he because he plays that so well. Even though I personally like, I love when they go see Sweeney Todd and he's in a suit, and I respect theater, but I also understand that when I'm out on the street in New York, sometimes I've just got like my jeans and my shirt, I've
Oh
got
yeah.
a hoodie in my backpack for later in the day, and I I always kind of feel bad that I'm sometimes dressed like a bum when I'm seeing a show, but it's just something I accept.
Hmm.
However, I like that he's taken her into the city. We're going to
Hmm.
dress real nice. And when she asks me to get popcorn, he says, "Oh, this is not like that. This is Broadway. This is
Hmm.
class." And the way he says, "This is class," it's just such a dad way of explaining it.
It's so sweet.
I fucking love it.
I know. In one of the most beautiful houses, I think they went into the Palace Theater, and I was just thinking, like, ooh, fancy. That's a fancy house. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You feel the red plushiness and the gold, brocade of it
Yeah.
all. It's nice.
Um, and while we're on the subject of just seeing that show, and this is just movie nitpick. I'm not holding it against the movie.
Okay.
Um, but that thing that happens when we're I know it bugged a lot of people in Loser when they go second acting to go see Cabaret, but it's the opening number, and you're like, wait, what the fuck? Because movies are movies.
Yeah.
I just like that Sweeney has already killed someone in the show Sweeney Todd before the Joanna song that we're seeing.
And violently so,
Yeah, so
like
it's just
even
funny.
angrily. Yeah.
I just have to imagine that, like, was he dozing off during Act One? Like, because
Or
you
maybe he
missed.
thought maybe he thought the whole thing was going to be about like them redeeming themselves in the second act. Like, wow,
He's
they're
like,
really bad
oh,
people at the end of Act One. So maybe in Act Two they'll realize the error of their ways and they'll learn the moral. He had no idea what goes on in
no,
Sweeney Todd, like
yeah,
to his shame. But
yeah. It's just funny to me that, like, we're in Act Two, we're in the second Joanna and
yeah,
the
I just
third Joanna. Yeah.
appreciate it because that Joanna is my favorite number in the musical. So
Oh,
I was
it's a great
happy.
song. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that whole yeah.
After I watched this movie, even though we end on a Springsteen song, like, I still had Joanna stuck in my head for like 2 hours.
I always have Joanna stuck in my head, so of course, City on Fire. But
um, no, but we were talking about Raquel Castro, and I just want to go back to the fact that
yes,
there's some. So she plays the fight. She can play the drama. She play the forgiveness, but also there's just little. Let's go to the other end of the spectrum. When she flushes the toilet and we hear Maya scream, her face
yeah,
is the perfect amount of genuine startled, but also like it's funny as fuck.
it's a comedic take,
The girl's
100%. Yeah,
funny. I love it because that the second version of "What Are Your Intentions," and I think
yes,
she even does one of these,
these.
right? Yeah. The way Affleck's playing it only works because of what she's giving him, and
Yeah,
it's perfection.
yeah. Well, because there's a level of like, I know exactly what I'm doing, and you know
Yeah.
exactly what I'm doing, and he's like, okay.
Yep.
I probably deserve this. Let's just get it over
Mm-hmm.
with.
And he plays both. The initial one.
Yeah.
Like, do you have what he has? It's like, can we write a
Mhm.
movie? Yes. Like
Yes.
those two scenes, everyone's perfect in both of them.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah. And he also has. I love me a beat like this kind of beat I'm going to describe to you,
Hmm.
and it's the way they play it. It's not just him, and he. Okay, I'll do the scene and then we'll describe it, but or
Hmm.
just talk about it. It's after they've ended God, That's Good,
Yeah.
and there's the silence and the crowd, and then back to Affleck, and he goes, "Shit,
Shit. Yeah. It was
laugh out
perfect.
loud every time."
Perfect. Perfection.
He
Yes,
is
I did too.
100% in the pocket,
Yeah.
and also it's the choice of because comedy like that, it's all visual.
Yeah.
If you're using mediums versus wides, it's communicating something completely different. And then also in the edit, like comedy editors are so important, and
Hmm.
and the amount of time they linger on them on stage, the amount of time they linger on the crowd,
Hmm.
a second or two too early, too late, like it is perfect. So that when we get to the shit,
Yeah.
kills,
It absolutely. I
kills.
agree. I agree 100%. That's the thing is that the comedic, I don't think there's a lot of comedic moments that drop out for me in this movie. That's another thing is that I'm smiling and laughing when I'm supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
It's never at the expense of the movie. I think And just to commend Kevin Smith as a screenwriter, I felt like the succinctness of his writing was never more present because every now and then there's a line that a filmmaker will drop in. I mean, a screenwriter will drop in, and it happens in plays too. That's ultimately the spine of the project that you're beholding as an audience member. And for me, the spine is owned by Maya when she says, "Like it or not, this is you." I mean, forget about what you thought you were and just accept who you are. That's the movie.
Yeah.
Enough said. I can't. It's
Mhm.
brava. You did it. You distilled everything into an incredibly simple sentence that makes absolute sense why it's being spoken by that particular character to that character at that particular time. And the audience is right on board with you. It would absolutely understand exactly what it is that you're saying. And it's not the same movie if you take that level of coherence out of these characters. The fact that especially Maya and Bart can recognize what needs to be done, and that Ollie, it's all about Ollie just
Yeah.
wiping the fog off of the glass so he can see more clearly and then continue. That's the other thing is like sometimes the fog, you got to keep wiping. It's like, oh, I haven't wiped that glass in a while. I think I need to.
You know what I can't help think of?
What?
I can't help think of the muse in Dogma going like your heart's in the right place, but your brain's gotta wake up.
Mm,
Like, I
yeah.
get it, you love your daughter, and I know you miss this job, but like you're a fucking dad and you gotta wake up.
Yeah. Oh my God, Ollie is one of the people that the muse is talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Your heart's in the right place.
Yeah.
Oh my
I
God.
get it. You miss the parties and you love your daughter, but come on, you know.
Dude.
Yeah. Uh Lastly, I just want to say,
Yeah.
if this is it may sound slightly like a critique, but if anything, to me, it's a leave them wanting more. If there's any note I had for this movie, if anything that I wanted that I didn't get,
Hmm.
it's that they make it's established that he's a good PR guy. He's good at spinning a yarn
Hmm.
and working a crowd. And there's this moment where they're trying to pitch the street work to the citizens, and they're like, "Why don't you go up there? Why don't you go up there?" And every time I watch this movie, I'm ready to hear his speech, and instead it becomes a
Yes.
montage, and I go, "Oh, I want to see that moment and
Yeah.
hear it." And not just see the implication of it, especially because Kevin Smith is such a writer.
I know.
I want that speech. I want to be moved by like the crowd and pretend that like I don't want this, and I want to have my mind changed, and I want to see him at work, you know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's my want. It leaves me wanting a little more.
That's a good point. I think I felt that in my initial screening, and this time I just kind of accepted, like, oh yeah, and then we get the montage. I'm just riding the wave. But you're right. That again, that kind of specificity and that kind of investment on his part, like, because he could have done it. That's the thing, is
That's the
that
thing, yeah.
yeah, it's not like, well, maybe he wasn't, but I mean, it's just like, I don't know.
I can't help but wonder if
Yeah.
he's like, but I'm stretching my legs a bit as a filmmaker here. You know, I've never really done like a dissolving montage. Like I had Alyssa and Holden through the city, but
Hmm.
we're in a moment. And I will say that like the way like Coey's like listening, like
Yeah.
it's a good montage. Like the crowd does the work. Like it's great.
But
But
we as an audience want to be seduced as well. Like, come
yeah,
on, show us what you do. Like we
yeah,
already saw what you do when you fucked it all up. Rebuild.
yeah. I'm just
Show
saying
us
I
your
want to see it.
gift.
Yeah,
Yeah, I agree. I agree 100%.
yeah. But
And
yeah,
that's
good
it.
times. I mean,
Yeah.
I like it enough to own it twice. And I've always hated over the years. If there's one thing, and I don't say the word hate often, but like I get how Kevin Smith likes to sort of punch down himself to take the wind out
Sure.
of critics, but like and
Sure.
detractors and naysayers. But
Hmm.
for all the years you go, oh, the guy made fucking Jersey Girl. There's nothing wrong with Jersey Girl. It just, it
Mm,
didn't do the business that maybe Miramax wanted,
yeah.
and it didn't satisfy the Snoochie Boochie fans.
Hmm.
It's a good time. It's
There
effective. makes you feel
Yeah.
things, makes me laugh,
Hmm.
makes you go, oh, like,
Yeah. There were by far many worse movies released in 2004. I won't go listing them here. I don't want to belittle this with examples, but
yeah, don't dirty it, Eddie. But yeah, thanks for
yeah.
joining me.
Yeah.
Thank you all for watching,
Hmm.
and we'll be back for something else.